The story begins at a beautiful and tranquil beach. At some point, someone once asked me this. What does it feel like to be the childhood friend of the great mage Launcha? Skyla just smiled faintly upon hearing that question. She didn't answer right away, but slowly cut the piece of meat on the table, then calmly asked back, "What do you think?" The woman gently lifted her teacup, a little surprised at being asked. "What?" Skyla said softly. "Try to imagine you were Launch's close friend since childhood. What would it feel like?" In the distance was the fresh, cool blue sea. The woman understood Skyla's meaning and cleverly replied, Perhaps it's the feeling of having the strongest person in the world on my side, and I would go show it off all over town." Hearing this answer, she smiled faintly, clasped her hands together, and replied cryptically, "Is that so?" The third son of the ducal family. Sali, Launcha Sali, the one who controls the elements, the leader of men, a great mage who appears once in 1,000 years. And her childhood friend, yes, he is someone everyone must admire. But Skyla recalled a scene when she was walking outside. She had blurted out a complaint. "It's a bit hot today." And Launcha had immediately used his magic to summon a rainstorm, his voice ringing out nonchalantly. "Then let me call the rain for you." Skyla was drenched by this sudden downpour. She angrily placed a hand on Launcha's shoulder, coldly ordering, "Stop it right now." There was also a time he entered Skyla's room to call her for a meal. "Skyla, aren't you going to eat?" She lay still on the bed, her voice full of gloom as she replied, "Going to eat feels like too much trouble." Without a moment's hesitation, Launcha cracked open the floor of Skyla's room, his face beaming as he said, "Then let me clear a path for you." She was startled by Launcha immediately sitting bolt upright and crying out, "Ah, don't." Another time, the two were sitting next to each other talking. Launcha caringly asked Skyla, "Are you heartbroken because of Duke and Duchess Karen?" He was about to comfort her. "Then let me." But Skyla quickly covered Launcha's mouth, her face scrunching up as she threatened, "Say another word, and I'll kill you." Skyla and Launcha were incredibly close. He could comfortably hug her tightly while Skyla was reading a book in a field of flowers. Launcha gently called her name, Skyla. But contrary to his look of boundless happiness, Skyla was extremely tired. She could only manage a forced smile. Having a great mage as a childhood friend was more difficult than she thought. Her name is Skyla Karen. In the middle of the magnificent mansion, two neat rows of servants stood on either side, bowing respectfully as Skyla entered. They didn't dare to make a sound, but inside, the whole group was terrified. "Oh no, it's the young lady. Don't make eye contact." As Skyla was walking, her face suddenly darkened. The servants' desperate inner voices echoed in her ears. Who knows what will be criticized for? She is the young lady of the ducal house of Karen, afflicted with a curse that lets her hear others' thoughts. Skyla stood silently among the servants, her annoyed expression causing the maids who looked at her to startle in fear. Skyla's mood instantly soured. She frowned as if considering something. Then Skyla turned around and asked, "Austin, what's next on schedule?" The servants, seeing that Skyla was no longer paying attention to them, quickly left. When asked by her, Austin skillfully pulled out the schedule with one hand. He read out loud, "Acting as the Duke's representative, you have a tea party at the Marquis Ganed's residence at 4 p.m. After the tea party, you will dine with the Duke and Duchess Karen. Next, at 11 p.m., you need to plan the charitable activities for the Karen family. Draft the family's budget for next month. Review the performance evaluation report of the night order." And she heard him read so much of the schedule that she had to cut him off. "That's enough." Skyla lowered her eyes, sighing wearily. To be the childhood friend of the great mage, there are 3 principles. Launch's sweet call suddenly rang out. "Skyla, want to have tea with me?" He had used magic to instantly appear next to Skyla. She frowned and glanced at Launcha, her eyes showing a speechless exasperation. Austin held the schedule in his hand, his face still extremely serious, showing no surprise, but only she could clearly hear his screaming inner voice. "That scared the life out of me. First, no matter what happens, you must not be surprised." Austin stood up straight and said blandly, "Greetings, Duke Launcha." But in his heart, he was already crying his eyes out. "I almost dropped the baby." Hearing this, Skyla couldn't help but think to herself, "You don't have one to drop." Launcha excitedly followed behind her, suggesting, "Come on, Skyla, my house just got some delicious jasmine tea." He enthusiastically invited Skyla. "Or artichoke tea. There's also Earl Grey tea, Count's tea, easy to drink too." Therefore, before Launcha could finish his sentence, she widened her eyes and firmly refused. I'm busy. Second, prioritize the work of the Duke's representative. Being bluntly rejected by Skyla, he felt very sorry for himself, his eyes welling up with tears as he called. Skyla. Austin said nothing, just stood by and observed everything. But in his heart, he couldn't help but feel sorry for Lancia. Duke Lancia is so pitiful. The most important thing right now is to inherit the ducal title as quickly as possible. In Skyla's office, his resolute voice rang out. Skyla, I'll wait until you're done with work. She didn't reply and continued to diligently handle her work. Lancia leaned on the desk with both hands, pleading. Please, I'm begging you. Austin stood still, but his mind was racing. The young lady is truly heartless. The Duke has pleaded so much. Even if it's late, the young lady could still go to the Solly ducal residence. And third, Skyla's hand holding the pen was trembling as if trying to endure. She suddenly shot up from her seat, her face scowling with annoyance. This also made Austin jump. Skyla gritted her teeth and called his name. Austin. Austin still calmly replied to her. Yes, my lady. Skyla gave a forced smile, ordering in a strained voice. With such a packed schedule, how can I possibly go to the Solly ducal residence? Tell Tysep to prepare the carriage. I will go to the Marquis Gannett's residence. Lancia, standing behind her, was still cheerful, looking at Skyla with anticipation. No matter what anyone says, do not give in to Lancia. Austin seriously obeyed her. I understand, but he wondered in his thoughts. Did I say that out loud? Seeing this, Lancia enthusiastically raised his hand and suggested to Skyla. Then I want to go to the Marquis Gannett's residence too. Let's go together, Skyla. She wearily touched her forehead, sighing as she explained to him. Unfortunately, this party is for women. You can't go. Lancia, feeling very hurt, asked. Why? I'm your childhood friend. Skyla still resolutely refused. Yeah, you can't. She stood with her arms crossed, leaning against the desk, nodding to herself as she thought. If I follow these 3 principles, no matter what happens, I can still live well. But Lancia was not discouraged at all. He suddenly exclaimed, Is that so? Then I'll turn into a woman. Hearing his words, Skyla thought she had misheard. She asked uncertainly, What? Lancia used magic to envelop his entire body, and his body immediately began to change. Immediately after, before Skyla's eyes was Lancia in the form of an incredibly beautiful girl. Skyla's eyes widened in exasperation, but she was still determined not to bring Lancia along. I can't give in like this. She smirked, saying decisively and without compromise. How do you plan to enter the Marquis's residence? You don't have an invitation. Lancia immediately conjured an invitation exactly like hers, holding it up in front of Skyla and saying, I can just conjure one. She was extremely annoyed by his stubbornness. You stubborn thing, no different from an iron shield. Skyla's fearsome glare shot towards him, frightening Lancia. He trembled with tears in his eyes, not daring to say anything more. Skyla helplessly softened her voice and said, Still no, this party is only for 4 people. She approached Lancia, flicking his forehead as she explained. If you suddenly appear, others will find it suspicious. It's not possible. Lancia let out a small cry when Skyla flicked his forehead. He looked up at her with a hurt expression, still trying to say, So, I just need to make it not suspicious, right? As soon as he finished speaking, Lancia used teleportation magic and disappeared, to Skyla's astonishment. Hey, but he wasn't gone for long before he returned. Lancia's face brightened up as he said, I'm back. He once again made Austin jump. Skyla had a bad feeling in her heart. She frowned and forced herself to ask, Where did you just go? Lancia playfully tilted his head to one side, honestly answering Skyla. I want to persuade them. She didn't understand his meaning and asked again, Persuade? Lancia smirked, explaining clearly to her. I used a brainwashing spell to convince the young ladies there that this is a 5-person tea party. After understanding what he had just done, Skyla angrily kicked Lancia out the window, not forgetting to order, Remove the magic right now. Kicked out by her, he only dared to cry out resentfully. A few times. A moment later, after returning to his true form, Lancia sat on the chair hugging his knees and said dejectedly, Skyla, I'm sad. She felt no sympathy for him at all. Skyla decisively cut off Lancia's budding emotions, then stopped being sad. His tears immediately started to stream down. Lancia struggled to reconnect the emotional thread she had just severed. Lately, Skyla hasn't been spending any time with me. I feel so lonely. Skyla crumpled the paper in her hand, sighing helplessly. Then she casually tossed the crumpled paper into Lancia's palm. Skyla's face darkened as she watched him blankly holding the paper ball, not knowing what to do. She leaned her face close to Lancia and explained. If you feel lonely, think of this lump as me and go home. I'm very busy. Hearing Skyla say this, he held up the paper ball to examine it more closely, muttering to himself. This is Skyla. She calmly sat down at her desk, thinking with relief. Now I can finally concentrate, right? To be honest, saying I'm busy isn't just an excuse. The work of representing the ducal family of Karen, the leading prestigious family in the empire, could in no way be leisurely. If you ask how a cursed duchess like her became the Duke's representative, well, they were dancing and exchanging sweet, romantic words. Oh, my sweet flavor, you are the angel who has stolen my heart. I don't know, you are the Duke's prisoner, imprisoned in my arms for life. Work is just a trial to separate us. It was her parents' fault for handing over all authority to her so they could go on their second honeymoon. Skyla had a headache, her eyes wide with exhaustion. She let out a breath, gazed out the window, and thought, right now I hold the most power. Skyla rested her chin on her hand, looking at the peaceful scene outside and thinking to herself, this feeling isn't so bad. But then she raised an eyebrow uneasily, thinking, but why is it so quiet? Skyla turned to look at Lancia and saw him using magic on the paper ball she had just given him. Skyla frowned and shot up from her seat. She immediately realized what Lancia was doing. Could it be alchemy? After using alchemy on the paper ball, he slowly walked towards Skyla. Lancia's gentle voice spoke. Skyla. Lancia knelt on one knee. He took her hand and said solemnly, because this is you. I turned it into something beautiful just like you. Skyla. He gently raised his hand to touch her cheek. Skyla's face instantly flushed red. Lancia raised a ring, wanted to put on her finger, his tone becoming even more affectionate. You are very beautiful. Skyla frowned and didn't answer. Her reason echoed a reminder. No matter what he says, I must not give in to Lancia's wishes. Just as his ring was about to be placed on Skyla's finger, the door to her office suddenly burst open. Duke Karen and Duchess Karen appeared in Skyla's room arm in arm. They excitedly shouted, "Congratulations!" She was left gaping in astonishment at their appearance. Duke Karen cheerfully continued, Skyla, Lancia, congratulations on your marriage. Duchess Karen, equally cheerful, added, now your parents can hand over the title to you. Skyla's hand was still outstretched, not yet withdrawn. Her face instantly darkened upon hearing her parents speak. Huh, what is this? It's not over yet. Oh my, Lancia, quickly give the girl the token of love. Duke Karen enthusiastically praised. Love is a wonderful thing, my child. But Skyla clearly heard their true intention in their hearts. Get married quickly so your parents can retire. While she was still annoyed and saying nothing, Lancia cheerfully spoke up. Then I'll take this opportunity to tell you, Skyla. He held out his hands. Inside was the ring Lancia intended to put on Skyla's finger earlier. He proposed to her with great sincerity. I like you, will you marry me? If you're not too busy, you'll come to like me too, right? Duke Karen and Duchess Karen were deeply moved upon hearing Lancia's proposal, but Skyla just smiled calmly, signed to herself in her heart. What a relief. She was currently extremely grateful for their sudden appearance. Thanks to her parents, she had come to her senses, and then Skyla decisively refused. No, Lancia cried out sadly. Don't be like that. She stood alone and tired, surrounded by Duke and Duchess Karen and Lancia, silently listening to them urge her on the matter of her marriage. Marry me, Skyla. Skyla could also clearly hear the desperate inner thoughts of her parents. Retire, 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 retire. She grimaced in despair, tears streaming down like rain, a feeling of unspeakable helplessness in her heart. Am I the only normal one here? It's so miserable when your childhood friend is an abnormal great mage. A voice echoed from within the castle. Skyla, don't leave me. Skyla, with a surprised face, wondered, leave you, Lancia? His eyes welled with tears as he confessed. You were never mine, including this time. You've rejected me 316 times. You're still counting? These words made the two people hiding at the door feel heartbroken as well. Hearing that, she flew into a rage and shouted, get home right now. Despite Lancia's crying and clinging, she saw it was no use and called for Febris. She heard her command and appeared immediately. You summon me, my lady. Skyla, with a helpless expression, ordered, throw Duke Lancia out for me. Lancia sobbed and begged. Skyla, I'm your childhood friend. He shouted through his tears. The flower language of a childhood friend is a life partner. Skyla, completely unconcerned, asked coldly, "Who's your life partner? What flower language?" With that, she ordered, "Drag him away." As Launcha was dragged away, he sobbed and shouted. Skyla, in her private room, Febris spoke up. "My lady," she asked caringly, "aren't you going to change into a different outfit?" Skyla was quite surprised. She looked at herself and said nonchalantly, "It's clean, why should I change?" Febris explained seriously. "The host of this tea party is Lady Aronia of the Marquis Gannett family. If you go dressed like this, you might be looked down upon." Hearing that, Skyla thought and admitted, "That's quite possible because she hates me." Aronia Gannett, the young lady of the Marquis Gannett family, has recently been expanding her influence in high society to a frightening degree. The ill-fated connection between her and me began a few years ago. The scene shifts to a room at that time. Aronia spoke up. "I'm planning to start a spice business. If I cover the shipping costs, they will provide them to me at cost price. The deposit is a bit high, but it's only half of the expected profit." Then she asked Skyla, "What do you think, Duchess?" Skyla wondered to herself. The numbers don't seem quite right. Then she frankly suggested, "I think it would be better for you to withdraw from this business now, my lady." Aronia said nothing and immediately stood up, saying, "I'm leaving." Skyla looked at her attitude, speechless. Aronia suddenly flew into a rage and shouted, "Duchess Skyla, you are too disrespectful. How could you go and tattle to my father about the business?" Skyla replied nonchalantly, "Tattle? That sounds unpleasant. I merely offered some light advice about the spice business to Marquis Gannett." Hearing this, Aronia flew into a rage and gritted her teeth. She glared, "This is my business, my venture. I'm not a child anymore." She aggressively turned her back and said, "I'll handle my own affairs." But in the end, she couldn't do it. Not only did Aronia fail to recoup the investment, she also caused a great loss to the family. After that incident, Marquis Gannett never let her touch the family's money again. Returning to the present, Skyla couldn't help but think, "She must hold a grudge against me. So why did she invite me? I wonder what trick she's planning to pull." She called out pensively, "Febris." She smiled confidently. "I'm just going out for a little while. What could happen?" She thought, even if that weren't the case, the truth is I'm often mistaken for a commoner. She smiled brightly and said to Febris, "In this empire, who would dare to look down on the young lady of the ducal house of Karen?" Febris couldn't help but exclaim. As expected of the young lady, she confidently put her hands on her hips and declared, "I am Skyla." Febris bowed respectfully. "I understand. My thinking was too shallow." Inside, she was full of admiration. That aura, that confidence. I must record this in the collection of Lady Skyla's famous quotes. Skyla couldn't help but wonder. "What on earth are you writing?" she asked herself. "Still, isn't this too impolite?" At that moment, a loud call rang out. "My lady," a carriage driver spoke up. "I will drive very carefully." Skyla looked around, assessing the situation. There was no Karen family crest. It was the type of carriage a commoner would use, and the driver was simply dressed. She smiled and requested, "Take me to the Marquis Gannett's residence." She thought to herself, if a commoner-looking carriage enters as a guest of a famous noble family, the Marquis Gannett's family probably won't be highly regarded. Even so, what's the reason for appearing like a commoner? At that moment, the carriage driver spoke up. "Let's depart." Sitting in the carriage, Skyla couldn't help but think. Troublesome. It's already annoying enough having to bluntly reject suitors. She remembered the time Launcha cheerfully proposed, "Please marry me." Just because my childhood friend is the famous Launcha. Even if that weren't the case, ridiculous rumors are spreading. I don't want to become a topic of gossip for the nobility. Skyla thought pensively. She wondered, do I really need to be polite to someone who hates me? She couldn't help but feel intrigued. If my parents hadn't forced me to meet this person and that, I wouldn't even bother coming to this tea party. Thinking of Aronia's words, the representative of Duke, Karen, isn't very keen on visiting the Gannett family. Skyla thought smugly, sorry, Aronia. Suddenly, she thought of the wedding ring and her face grew angry. Just thinking about it was so annoying, me marrying Launcha. Skyla held her teacup and began. I'm just asking because I want to know, you said you like me. Is that like the same as the way I like you? Seeing Launcha's blank face, she continued, not just as a friend, but the like between a man and a woman, right? Launcha listened with a blank face. He asked innocently, is there a difference? Hearing this, Skyla suddenly became flustered and blushed. She pensively recalled that scene. She thought to herself, Lancia is the most powerful mage on the continent, but he doesn't understand the emotions of people. This makes Lancia seem like an innocent child, but at the same time, it also makes him an unfeeling person. Come to think of it, Lancia's magic is easily affected by his emotions. If he can't control his emotions, his magic will also explode accordingly. If that young soul fails to master his emotions. Thinking of this, Skyla helplessly bowed her head. Febris, beside her, asked with concern, "Are you feeling unwell somewhere?" Skyla denied it. "No, I'm just tired from having to deal with that Lancia." Febris suddenly suggested, "Should we ask the Royal Knight Order to issue a restraining order against Duke Lancia?" She silently cursed that clingy man. If he weren't the young lady's childhood friend, Skyla suddenly stammered. "No, there's no need. What if the Royal Knight Order gets injured?" Febris said dejectedly. "I understand." Skyla couldn't help but ponder. Lancia says he likes me, but it's just an imprinting between two childhood friends. Perhaps that's why only I can calm Lancia down. She recalled the scene of someone standing before her, bowing their head. "Skyla, I'm asking this of you." That person said sincerely, "Please don't cast away my son." Skyla thought, "That's why, Lancia, I can't push you away." She smiled faintly, "Because you're my important friend." At that moment, the two horses suddenly braked hard. Seeing Skyla hit her head inside the carriage, Febris shouted in worry, "My lady, are you all right?" Skyla, dizzy, wondered, "What on earth is happening?" She and Febris stepped out of the carriage with angry expressions. Opposite them, another carriage driver furiously shouted, "Hey, what kind of driving is that?" Looking at the strange crest on the other carriage, Skyla wondered, which family does that carriage belong to? The other driver was still shouting loudly. What if there had been an accident? Skyla thought, speechless. It's obvious who was cutting whom off. Thinking this, she loudly questioned, "Why are you shouting at my driver? You are the one at fault." The other driver retorted very aggressively. "What, you commoner woman?" He thought, how dare she arrogantly interfere in a conversation between men? Hearing this, Skyla was immediately speechless at this madman. The angry driver pointed at Skyla's face and shouted, "Who the hell do you think you are to open your mouth?" Skyla's driver replied, annoyed, "You've gone too far." Febris also reprimanded him. "How dare you be so disrespectful to my lady?" The other driver looked Skyla up and down and thought, probably the daughter of some nouveau riche. A commoner acting like a lady. Skyla felt a little flustered and thought to herself, it might not be far from the truth. Seeing her expression, the man immediately became excited and mocked her. Feeling wronged? Then run to Viscount Adesina's residence and complain. Hearing this name, Skyla's face darkened as she thought with contempt. Some mixed blood lineage I've never even heard of. The man, still unaware of her identity, continued, "To cause trouble. I'm so unlucky to get caught up in this nonsense with this woman. Hey, hurry up and move your carriage." Skyla, who had been patient until now, clicked her tongue. Honestly, she spoke arrogantly. "You think you can win just by opening your mouth and shouting loudly? Is that all you know how to do besides shouting? I feel sorry for you, so I'll lower myself to your level." Hearing this, the man glared at her resentfully. Skyla then took a deep breath, then pointed straight at the aggressive man's face and shouted loudly, You better learn to drive properly. You fake thing with so many layers like an onion, you peel and peel, and still can't find a core. Did you leave your sense of direction under your pillow before coming out? I'll crush you to bits and sprinkle you as fertilizer for dandelions." Hearing the curses, the man's face turned pale and he stammered, You woman." Hearing that detestable tone, Skyla put a hand to her forehead in exasperation. That "you woman" tone again. Febris heard the command and immediately spoke up. "Yes, my lady." Skyla pointed directly at the aggressive man and ordered, "Get this carriage out of my way. It's unbearably bad luck." Febris obeyed. "Yes, my lady." Then she walked straight towards the other carriage. With one hand, Febris grabbed the wheel and lifted it high. Her face emotionless, she lifted the entire carriage high into the air, leaving the other driver stunned. Without another word, she threw the carriage straight to the ground, causing the driver to collapse and stammer, No. Skyla appeared coolly in front of him and said, "If you don't want to have your skull smashed by a lady, you'd better live properly." With that, her carriage moved on, leaving the man in astonishment. Sitting in the carriage, Skyla wondered, Viscount A something, was it? she thought. I heard the Crown Prince has granted many new titles to consolidate his position. I wonder what the Crown Prince looks like. Febris suddenly asked, should we send someone to the Viscount's residence to reprimand them? Skyla immediately dismissed it. No, it's too much trouble. Then she smiled faintly, resting her chin on her hand. Instead, if I meet them again, I'll crush that family. She was still thinking. Viscount A something. A moment later, Aronia saw something and grimaced in annoyance. Skyla appeared with a smile next to Febris. She quickly regained her smiling expression. Welcome, welcome, Duchess Skyla. In her heart, she couldn't help but sneer. How dare she come here dressed like that? Skyla thought to herself. Her reaction is just as I predicted, so satisfying. Aronia didn't hide her mocking expression as she covered her mouth and laughed. I didn't know the Duchess would come, but it's fine if you don't. Skyla couldn't help but wonder. With this kind of reaction, she invites someone and then says it's fine if they don't come. Isn't she plotting something? Aronia couldn't hide her derision as she thought. I only invited her out of courtesy. Who would have thought she'd actually come? Didn't she notice? She's not even close to us, ruining the whole atmosphere. Skyla observed and thought to herself. She didn't even bother to prepare a seat for me? Looking around, she told herself. Well, that's to be expected. She thought, because I'm famous for not participating in high society. Taking a sip of tea, Skyla couldn't hide her derision as she told herself. Right? You girls wouldn't have expected it, would you? She remembered her mother's words. It's all for your own good. Her father threatened. Who dares to make my adorable little girl cry? Remembering this, she thought helplessly. Who would have thought my parents would want to send me away this badly? Aronia then smiled fakely and explained. I really didn't know the Duchess would come. Please forgive me. Skyla felt sick at her expression and wondered, what is she going to criticize me for this time? If I'm dressed like this, I might as well not have come at all. A young lady also spoke up fakely. It is my honor to have the opportunity to enjoy tea with the Duchess. In her heart, she thought, what's the point of coming here just to sit in one place and not talk? Another young lady added, thank you so much for coming, Duchess. In her heart, she secretly gave the middle finger and sneered. This unlucky fool wants to pick a fight with Aronia. Skyla just smiled through these fake displays. Then she slammed her teacup down on the table, stunning the other girls. She thought to herself, go on and hate me, I don't care. Skyla rested her chin on her hand defiantly. It seems I've interrupted the young ladies' gathering. Aronia immediately flashed a fake smile. Not at all. What are you talking about? Skyla just watched her put on a one-woman show without saying anything. She thought, even so, sometimes even I hate this curse of being able to hear people's thoughts. The blonde-haired lady spoke. Everyone knows, right? The Imperial Palace is holding a ball next week. Skyla thought, for instance like this. The scheming, blue-haired lady. I finally got the enchanting perfume from the Hapnia Imperial Palace. Now His Highness the Crown Prince will be my slave. Skyla thought to herself, isn't that a smuggled item? Aronia put on that fake face again and waved her hand. I think the opposite. Dose is the one with a chance. But in her heart, she thought differently. Because I was on my facial care routine that day, my skin is now so smooth that even a fly would slip and slide on it. Skyla felt nauseous and cursed internally. Wash your face, for God's sake. The blonde-haired lady spoke again. You're exaggerating, my lady. What's important is the Crown Prince's feelings. But in her belly, she was saying, I've commissioned Madame Bisley, the best dressmaker in the Imperial Palace, to make my outfit. The Crown Prince will only have eyes for me. Skyla heard it, felt disgusted, and truly helpless. She looked at the vixens in front of her and cursed internally. A bunch of incurable lunatics. She told herself, I have no desire to know those dark thoughts. Looking around, she thought, I don't care if the Crown Prince marries one of these three, or even a fish head. Hearing the noise around her, she sighed internally. It's so noisy. Skyla lamented, I'd rather be with Lancia. For some reason, I've never been able to hear Lancia's thoughts. Perhaps his magical power is stronger than the sorcerer who cursed. Me, sitting for a long time, made Skyla feel helpless. I really want to flip this table and go home. If I do that, she won't send me tea party invitations anymore, right? Hith hith. Thinking that, an idea struck her. Hey, not bad. At that moment, Fabrice called out like a savior. My lady. She held up a gift box as a reminder. You forgot this. Seeing the gift box, Aronia's eyes lit up immediately. Oh, Lady Skyla, what is this? Skyla ordered, open it, Fabrice. A meticulously decorated cake was revealed. The three ladies couldn't help but marvel at it. They praised her hypocritically. "Did you really bring this here to eat with us? I'm so touched." Skyla thought to herself. Mother was afraid her only daughter had no social skills, so she prepared this. She thought, just a moment ago they were cursing this and that in their minds. What a bunch of hypocrites. Aronia asked her, "So what do you think, Lady Skyla?" She wondered. "Think about what?" The blonde-haired lady asked cheerfully. "Among the three of us, who will His Highness the Crown Prince like?" Hearing this, Skyla's eyes widened in astonishment. The question of who he would like among the three of them gave Skyla a headache. The blue-haired lady smiled shyly. "Since His Highness the Crown Prince is also a man, he will choose a beautiful lady, right?" In her heart, she narcissistically thought, "Honestly, aren't I the most beautiful one here?" Skyla thought to herself, "Then why ask me?" Skyla replied awkwardly, "I suppose he'll choose the one he likes." The blonde-haired lady immediately asked excitedly, "Then what kind of woman does His Highness like?" "I'm sure His Highness desires a perfect person to become the crown princess." Aronia added, "That's right, I completely agree with Lady Skyla's words." She struck an arrogant pose, and His Highness also values the background of the candidates for the position of crown princess, doesn't he? She thought to herself, "My background is from a marquis family. Doesn't that make me the most likely candidate?" Skyla let their words go in one ear and out the other. She was helpless against these crazy vixens. "Maybe I should just disappear." At that moment, the blonde-haired lady suddenly spoke up. "But if we're talking about titles, then the most brilliant candidate is Lady Skyla." These words made Aronia, who was holding a teacup, tremble. Seeing the broken teacup, the other two ladies were stunned and worried. Skyla was smug, always putting on a show. Aronia was also smug, but Lady Skyla already has a lover. "You wouldn't cheat on Duke Lancier, would you?" Hearing this, Skyla froze on the spot. Her face flushed, and she looked at Aronia, saying angrily, "What? Why are you suddenly dragging Lancier into this?" Aronia smiled shyly and asked hypocritically, "Why not? Isn't it true?" She then winked, pretending not to know, and said, "Many people say that Lady Skyla and Duke Lancier are deeply in love." Skyla immediately slammed the table in anger. Who is spouting such nonsense? Aronia, likely not expecting her to get so angry, said uneasily yes. Skyla couldn't swallow her anger and said reproachfully, "I have that kind of relationship with Lancer." With that, she went crazy, her eyes bloodshot, and flipped the table over, stunning the three ladies. The three ladies looked at her with disbelief. Skyla looked at them and thought, this is human nature. Right or wrong, their minds are only filled with thoughts of slandering each other. Skyla pointed a stern finger at Aronia's face. "Listen carefully, Lady Aronia." She glared and declared, "I only like handsome men." The three ladies were stunned to hear this. Skyla declared with a serious face, "Besides Lancier, there are many handsome men as beautiful as peacocks, and meeting all the handsome men in this world is my life's goal, so don't you dare pair me up with someone else." Hearing this, Aronia suddenly knelt down. She cursed internally. "Does a person like you think you can snatch the crown prince from my hands?" She complained with annoyance. "You are too rude, Lady Skyla." In her heart, she vowed, "I will definitely become the crown princess. I will repay today's humiliation to you tenfold." Skyla heard her thoughts and held her head in helplessness. "I already said I don't care who becomes the crown princess." Then she called Fabrice. She said, "Fabrice, bring that thing here." Fabrice quickly understood. "Yes, my lady." With that, Skyla propped one leg up to use as a table. She wrote something intently, which made Aronia wonder, "What are you doing?" Skyla held up the paper, implying, "This should be enough." Aronia's eyes lit up. "Is the lady giving me money now?" Skyla asked, "Well, aren't you going to take it?" Seeing this, Aronia gritted her teeth. She refused flatly, "I don't need it." She wondered, is the lady trying to use money to erase her rudeness? "Don't think I'll let this action of yours slide." It's just a check." The blonde-haired lady looked curiously at the check as it flew past her face. She bent down to pick it up. When she saw the amount on it, she cried out in shock, drawing the attention of Skyla and Aronia. She held up the check, unable to believe her eyes, and stammered, 500,000 francos. Skyla smiled wickedly and asked, "Are you that surprised, Aronia? Is the amount too large to refuse?" Skyla thought to herself, "She probably can't imagine the personal wealth of me, the acting duchess of the Karen family, the richest family in the empire. Use that money to start new business. Sitting with you is boring to death. Don't invite me again next time." Then she called out bluntly, "Let's go, Fabrice." Fabrice also obeyed. Yes, my lady. She couldn't help but lament. Being able to hear others' thoughts is truly an exhausting curse. I have to face malice that I shouldn't have to see and deeply experience the hypocritical face of humanity. Seeing that she wasn't in a good state, Fabrice asked with concern, "My lady, are you all right?" She thought to herself, "My lady, if it weren't for that madman Sali, my lady wouldn't have had to suffer such humiliation." Hearing this thought, Skyla smiled happily. Then she snuggled against Fabrice and fell fast asleep, which made Fabrice go crazy inside. The lady is resting her head on my shoulder. Skyla, also exhausted, thought to herself, "I've met too many people at once. Today, I just want to rest." The carriage finally came to a stop. Skyla looked at the scene before her with dismay. Skyla looks just like Duke Karen and the Duchess. It seems Skyla has completely inherited all the love from both of you. Hearing these words, Duchess Karen beamed. "Oh my, Lancia, your words are so pleasant to hear." Skyla arrived home to this scene and questioned angrily, "Lancia, why are you here?" Her gaze suddenly shifted to something. She looked at the cake tray in front of her, stunned. It is. She recognized the Karen ducal family's heirloom, decorated piece by piece with mermaid's tears. Skyla felt hurt. The family heirloom that was never brought out on her birthday was here for Lancia. Duke Karen said cheerfully, "Skyla, my treasure." Duchess Karen added, "Oh, is my cute little baby home?" Skyla helplessly stopped them, shouting, "Father, mother." Duchess Karen immediately corrected her. "Skyla, you shouldn't call me mother. You should call me dearest mother, right?" Duke Karen agreed. "That's right, my beautiful daughter. You should call me dearest father." Seeing this scene, Lancia's eyes lit up. Skyla spoke, "I'm an adult now and can manage the family, so stop treating me like a child." The more Lancia looked at her, the more mesmerized he became. Skyla suddenly heard Duke Karen's thoughts. "My daughter, you're so cold. I want you to call me dearest father." Duchess Karen also wondered, "Is it so hard to call me dearest mother? You're being so unreasonable, so unreasonable." She thought to herself, "They don't even give me time to be sad about the heirloom." At that moment, she crossed her arms and asked, "Lancia, aren't you going home?" Lancia asked with sparkling eyes, "Skyla, are you worried about me now?" Skyla said coldly, "No." She heard her parents' thoughts again. "She's already an adult, our beautiful daughter Skyla." Duke Karen chuckled and thought to himself, "So you can get married now, right?" Hearing that, Skyla couldn't believe her ears. Skyla's parent closed in on her, "You must get married, get married." They threatened Skyla like ghosts. "Your parents have prepared everything. We just need your consent." Even Lancia didn't spare her, proposing, "Let's get married, Skyla." It startled her. A series of voices, "Mary, Mary," echoed, driving her crazy. Skyla's jaw dropped in horror. She told herself, "Actually, there's a reason my parents are pushing me so hard." According to imperial law, a person without a spouse cannot inherit a title. She thought, "My parents want to retire, and I want the title, but I can't inherit it for that reason." Looking at the bewildered Lancia, Skyla thought to herself, "Even so, I don't want to marry anyone." Lancia still called out blankly, "Skyla." She thought to herself, "His voice is so sweet." Then Skyla cleared her throat. Lancia still asked innocently, "Skyla, you're happy to see me too, right? Right? Me too." Hearing this, Skyla got furious and yelled, "Stop talking nonsense and get up." Looking at the stubborn Lancia, she wondered, "What is this? Why can't I move him?" Lancia blankly took Skyla's hand and asked, "What's wrong, Skyla?" Skyla thought to herself before, just one push and he would move, but since when did he become so sturdy? Thinking that, she said helplessly, "You." Then she pointed at Lancia and asked, "You've gotten fat, haven't you?" These words made Lancia feel wronged. "No, I'm not fat." He sobbed, "My weight is standard. I eat a balanced diet every day and practice swordsmanship regularly." He explained tearfully, "Yes, yesterday, I was busy choosing a dessert to eat with you, so I ended up eating all sorts of things." Skyla immediately realized that's right. She stared intently and thought, Lancia is an adult now, too. She thought to herself, even at this very moment, looking at Lancia in front of her, she thought, is also taller than me now. I hadn't realized all this time. At that moment, a voice called Skyla. It made her stammer, huh? Lancia gently touched Skyla's eyes and said warmly, "Your eyes are like a clear sky. Looking at them makes me feel better, because those eyes are like a brilliant sunset." Hearing these words, Skyla squeezed her eyes shut in disbelief. Suddenly, one of her eyes opened. The Duke and Duchess Karen joyfully exclaimed in their minds, "Are the two of them getting married? We'll get to retire." Thinking that, Skyla spoke up. Launcha, are you crazy? Hearing this, Launcha's eyes widened in astonishment. Duchess Karen immediately scolded her. How could you say such a thing? Duke Karen scratched his head in confusion and reminded her, Skyla, you shouldn't just say things that hurt others. I'm sorry, Launcha. Launcha also smiled cleverly and reassured him. Duke Karen, I'm not others. Because I'm Skyla's only childhood friend, it's okay. Because I'm the only childhood friend. Because I'm a childhood friend. A while later, Skyla sat at the table and thought helplessly. In the end, I failed to kick Launcha out, and so we ended up sitting next to each other. A voice rang out, as expected. Launcha has no one but our daughter. If only our Skyla were half as good as you. Launcha immediately spoke up. Skyla is not a bad person. Although, right after, he listed a series of things. She's blunt and impolite, uses money and power to force others into things. And she also has materialistic tendencies. Finally, Launcha concluded, but deep down, she is a friend with an incredibly warm heart. Hearing this, Skyla couldn't help but curse internally. One compliment and 4 criticisms. You might as well have said nothing at all. Duchess Karen was extremely pleased and beamed. Honey, there's someone like that who loves our daughter Skyla. Duke Karen also agreed. Yes, I hope our Skyla can live her whole life with someone like that. By the way, you two should just get married. No, Skyla slammed the table in protest. I don't want to. She questioned fiercely. Why do you keep forcing me to marry Launcha? We're just friends. Launcha's face turned pale as he counted 17 times. Duke Karen immediately scolded. Skyla, you are a Karen. He reminded her sternly. You know you need a marriage partner to inherit the ducal title, right? Skyla bowed her head helplessly. Father is not wrong at all. She heard the thought. For the past year, you have done well as the acting duchess. Now it's time for you to take the title. So getting married and settling down would be better for you. Am I wrong? She thought to herself, they talk as if they're doing everything for my sake, but the Duke and Duchess Karen looked serious on the outside. But in their hearts, they were thinking, I want to go to the paradise of love with my darling. Haha, when Skyla becomes the Duchess, I will be forever imprisoned in the loving arms of the Duke and live happily ever after. Hearing these thoughts, Skyla felt deeply hurt. They both just want to abandon their responsibilities. Seeing Skyla trembling with anger, Launcha also got scared. He asked worriedly, Skyla, then will you marry me? Before he could finish, Skyla bluntly scolded, get lost. Launcha helplessly counted 18 times. Duke Karen asked, is there anyone better than Launcha, my dear? Duchess Karen also agreed. That's right, what does Launcha lack? In their hearts, they both pleaded, let your parents retire. Skyla couldn't help but feel hurt. She watched pensively as her parents talked happily with Launcha. She bowed her head helplessly and said, I'll be leaving first. Both the Duke and Duchess Karen called out worriedly, Skyla. She wondered sadly, to my parents, am I just an heir to the title? Why don't they care about my happiness at all? She threw open the door and stepped outside, slumping down on the grass and thinking, but they know perfectly well that I can hear other people's thoughts. Tears of self-pity fell from her eyes. Lying down on the grass, she said sadly, you two are terrible. She thought to herself, besides the sorcerer who placed the curse on me, my parents are the only ones who know about this curse. She pondered, I know their marital relationship is very good, but can't they care about me a little? At that moment, a voice called out, Skyla. Launcha asked with great worry, what's wrong? Are you upset about something? Skyla looked blankly at the boy in front of her. She immediately turned her back and said, it's nothing. Seeing this, Launcha became even more worried, his eyes welling up as he asked, if it's nothing, then why are you in a bad mood? Can you tell me? Skyla thought, you don't even consider that maybe I'm sad because of you, Launcha. Suddenly, she buried her face and shouted, I'm not in the mood to talk nonsense with you right now. Go home. This scene made Launcha break down and cry. He tried his best to coax her, asking, then when you're in the mood, I'll wait until then, okay? Please let me see your face. Skyla went crazy with anger and screamed, it's just that seeing my parents' ridiculous display of affection annoys me. Being yelled at, Launcha's face went blank. Skyla sighed and thought to herself, I've answered him, so he probably won't ask anymore. Launcha said sadly, I see. Then he spoke up, calling Skyla. He asked innocently, then should I make the relationship between Duke Karen and the Duchess discordant? Skyla was immediately stunned and asked what? Launcha said nonchalantly, didn't the sight of their harmony put you in a bad mood? If I drive them apart, your mood will improve, right? Skyla was speechless at his words. Utterly helpless, She bowed her head and refused. No, there's no need. Remembering her parents' affectionate scene, Duke Karen pointed to the sky and said, "That star is my Duchess's star." And Duchess Karen replied, "That star over there is my Duke's star." This made Skyla retort, "Their harmonious marital relationship is the only good thing about Duke and Duchess Karen. Don't you dare destroy it." She looked at Lancia with annoyance. "More importantly, you don't use magic on people so often." Then she questioned, "Are you planning to brainwash my parents? And if you're not satisfied, you'll brainwash me too, right?" Lancia quickly dismissed it. "How could I do that?" He nuzzled his head against Skyla and confessed, "If I did that, you wouldn't be the Skyla I like anymore." Skyla thought to herself, "This is so annoying." She thought to herself, "The sense of peace when I'm with Lancia and the gentleness in his every word are so frustrating." At that moment, Lancia suddenly spoke, "Skyla, I like you." Skyla's face immediately turned bright red after that sentence. It's so hot." This made Lancia exclaim in surprise, "Ouch." Lancia looked at her and asked innocently, "Hot? It's hot." Skyla quickly made an excuse. "Of course, it's summer." Skyla looked at Lancia in front of her, blushing and stammering. "Don't." Lancia asked innocently, don't what?" Skyla angrily put her hands on her hips and scolded, "Last year, when it was hot, you suddenly made it rain." Lancia remembered and nodded. Suddenly he smiled brightly. "I remember now. You said you hate the rain, right?" Looking at his hand, Skyla's jaw dropped and she shouted, "No, wait, what are you planning to do?" Lancia casually performed magic to Skyla's astonishment. She could only scream silently, "No, don't." A maid saw the falling snow and exclaimed with tears in her eyes, "Oh my God, trash is falling from the sky." Another was stunned. "Why is there snow in the summer? Is it the apocalypse?" Lancia said to her innocently, "Because you hate rain, I made it snow." "What do you think?" He still asked innocently. "I did a good job, right?" Lancia from her made him look at Skyla excitedly. She couldn't take it anymore. Her face turned purple with anger, and she screamed, "Go home right now." The scene changes to the dining table, where Skyla is having dinner with her parents. Duke Karen called out affectionately, "Skyla." His eyes sparkled. "My lovely darling, my pride and my hope." Skyla, in contrast, said coldly, "You can get straight to the point, father." The Duke looked at his wife and thought, "My lady, why don't you tell her?" Duchess Karen passed it back. "No, it would be better if the Duke said it." Skyla reminded the two of them, "I can hear everything." Duke Karen immediately spoke up. "Skyla, I have a wish. Can you listen to it?" Skyla said with a blank expression, "No." Duke Karen pleaded helplessly, "Can't you listen to what your father says? It's not like your ears will wear out from hearing it." Skyla just replied coldly, "They are." Duke Karen, seeing this, was helpless. "If that's the case, then answer me." He relented. "A fiancé is also fine." Duchess Karen tried to persuade Skyla to get engaged. "It's also a form of marriage contract. You can inherit the ducal title." Hearing that, Skyla explained, "I know, but right now I don't have anyone I want to marry. So what can I do?" Hearing his daughter's words, Duke Karen became pensive. Duchess Karen was no exception. The two of them hung their heads in defeat. It's really not Lancia, even though Duke Sali said it would be great if the two of them got married. Duchess Karen quickly suggested, "You two should find a husband at the royal ball this time." Skyla rolled her eyes in exasperation and thought to herself, "Aronia too, why does everyone treat the ball like an express husband selection contest?" Duke Karen was also excited. "Father, I can't help but talk about our fateful meeting." Duchess Karen reminisced. "It was a wonderful night. That must have been about 20 years ago." Seeing the two of them being so lovey-dovey, Skyla felt nauseous and thought to herself, "Oh right, the model couple from the ball is sitting right in front of me." Thinking that, she said, "Please eat your meal." Duchess Karen's eyes sparkled as she advised, "I don't expect much. I just want you to live happily. But if he comes from a decent family, that would be even better." Duke Karen added, "I feel the same as your mother, dear. However, a monthly income of at least 100,000 francos would be better." Duchess Karen reminded her, "And he must be ambitious." The two of them continuously instructed her on things like being devoted to the family, how to care for children, that drinking, smoking, and having bad habits when drunk are not allowed. Skyla listened to these sky-high standards and wanted to scream. Duchess Karen was still instructing her, "You must find out if he has any underlying diseases. You should secretly investigate." Duke Karen reminded her, "Also check if his biological father is bald." Their one line of not expecting much drove Skyla crazy. They were also startled by her expression. Skyla declared firmly. I will take responsibility for the ducal house of Karen myself. The Duke and Duchess Karen held their breath and listened. Skyla finally couldn't hold back anymore, her eyes sharp. From now on, don't pressure me to get married anymore. Seeing his beloved daughter angry, Duke Karen immediately stammered, all right, dear. Duchess Karen also agreed, I understand. Then Skyla left, right in front of her parents' eyes. She thought to herself, so much for my parents' retirement not being delayed. Witnessing their beloved daughter's anger, the Duke and Duchess Karen were terrified, trembling, and hugging each other. Another morning came. Skyla was writing something intently. Hearing a noise, she thought to herself, is that Fabrice? Come in. Fabrice entered and said respectfully, pardon the intrusion, my lady. Skyla confessed, my close handmaiden Fabrice is one of the few people I can trust. The reason is, on the outside, Fabrice didn't show much emotion. I'm sorry to interrupt while you were working, my lady. In her heart, she was excited. I get to see the young lady first thing in the morning. I'm such a happy person. Skyla thought, because she is utterly loyal to me. She thought to herself, outside the door, she is the only one who admires me. She asked gently, what is it, Fabrice? Fabrice reported, a letter has arrived from the Imperial Palace, my lady. He said it must be delivered directly into your hands. Skyla asked, a little surprised, for me? Not for my father. She felt a pang of guilt and wondered, could it be about the incident at the tea party? No, the Imperial Palace wouldn't send a letter just for that. Thinking that, she felt relieved. All right, let him in. A man bowed respectfully. I have come to see Lady Skyla of the ducal house of Karen. The man was flustered. I'm very sorry to disturb you so early in the morning, but His Highness the Crown Prince ordered that this letter be delivered at the crack of dawn. Skyla was a little curious. The Crown Prince? She thought to herself, I've never had a proper conversation with the Crown Prince. We only greet each other occasionally when we pass by. We are complete strangers. She was full of questions, but he sent me a secret letter. Skyla asked the messenger, thank you. Is it a letter that requires an immediate response? The messenger said, an immediate response is not necessary. In that case, I will take my leave. Skyla looked at the letter with a puzzled expression. She held out her hand and called for Fabrice. That thing. Fabrice quickly understood. Here it is, my lady. Skyla gently opened the letter. Suddenly, her eyes looked horrified. She was surprised. This isn't just a letter. She held the letter with a trembling hand. Skyla was stunned. The Crown Prince's seal. It's an imperial command. The letter read, meet me in my palace today at 2 p.m. Reading this line left Skyla stunned. Fabrice asked curiously, what does the letter say, my lady? Skyla answered slowly. His Highness the Crown Prince says he wants to see me today. Fabrice quickly understood. I will inform the servants to prepare for you to enter the palace. In her heart, Fabrice couldn't help but feel smug. As expected of my charming lady, even His Highness the Crown Prince couldn't resist. Seeing Fabrice's wild thoughts, Skyla said to herself, it's not like that, Fabrice. The imperial command sent by the Crown Prince caused a huge shockwave. A servant whispered, have you heard? The young lady is going to the palace to meet His Highness the Crown Prince. The servant announced that His Highness the Crown Prince wanted to see Lady Skyla. The servants couldn't believe their ears. His Highness the Crown Prince and the young lady are meeting with the intention of getting married? Something like that. Duke and Duchess Karen quickly heard the news and rushed straight into Skyla's room with panicked expressions. Duchess Karen asked in disbelief, Skyla, are you sure, dear? Skyla looked at them and her eyes widened. Her parents asked with tears in their eyes, are you getting engaged to His Highness the Crown Prince? Seeing their expressions, Skyla's face darkened. She held her head in her hands and wondered, who said something so absurd? Suddenly, someone fainted right in front of them, stunning the three of them. Duke Karen worriedly said, Austin. Austin trembled and announced, Duchess Duke. He stammered. Right now, rumors are spreading everywhere in the ducal mansion. These words brought tears to Lady Karen's eyes. Austin trembled with concern. Please, everyone be careful. Saying that, Austin fainted, leaving Duke Karen in deep shock. Skyla remained cold. Please go change your clothes and get out. Watching Fabrice firmly close the door, she sighed in relief. Finally, some peace and quiet. She thought to herself, is this the next thing to deal with? Meeting His Highness the Crown Prince, I know I can't dress casually, but this. Skyla looked at the outfit and couldn't help but exclaim, "It's too much." Fabrice pointed to the outfit and introduced, "This is the latest fashion trend, my lady." Skyla looked at the dress and exclaimed, "The latest fashion? It looks like the fabric could crush someone to death." Then she bluntly ordered, "Change to another dress." She thought to herself, using the words crushed to death is no joke. In fact, a young lady who once fell into a lake almost died from the weight of her dress. Skyla thought to herself, "I don't want to risk my life just for that dress." Fabrice persuaded, "There must be a reason why this style has become so popular. Why don't you try it on and then decide?" She thought to herself, "If she wears it, the lady will surely be very beautiful. I used my own money to order this dress for Madame Bisley." Skyla still stubbornly argued, "If you don't want to kill me, then hurry up and bring out another one." Fabrice looked at the dress Skyla was wearing and was speechless. A call of "my lady" caught Skyla's attention. The coachman greeted with a smile. "You've arrived," Skyla teased. "You're dressed up so nicely today." The coachman shyly scratched his head. "Of course, today you have to ride in the family's carriage. Today the carriage I'm riding in is the private carriage of the ducal family of Karen. To be able to move comfortably, it is equipped with countless different magics." Skyla was sitting when she suddenly realized. A blue butterfly. She looked at the butterfly with sparkling eyes. She thought, "This butterfly has the same color as Launch's eyes." The coachman announced loudly, "I will depart now." Skyla wondered to herself, "I haven't seen him these past few days. Was he that shocked when I chased him away?" She told herself, "It makes sense. Being chased away twice in one day might have hurt his feelings. Whether he comes or not makes me worried." Fabrice then spoke up, "My lady, should I kill that butterfly?" Skyla was startled and stammered, No need to do that." Fabrice reassured, "I asked because I saw you kept paying attention to this butterfly." Skyla said, "All right, I'll let it go." Suddenly she called Fabrice. Skyla suggested, "How about I marry Launcha?" This statement made Fabrice roll her eyes helplessly. Objectively speaking, Launcha is a pretty good husband, an archmage that comes once in 1,000 years and the youngest son of the Solly family. Skyla thought to herself, "Launcha won't take over the family. I should just marry him." Thinking of this, she became crazily confused. She reminded herself, "Get a grip, Skyla. Did your brain fly away just because of dress? I don't even dare to imagine living with Launcha." Skyla recalled a time when Launcha's eyes widened as he boasted, "Skyla, because you don't like high society gatherings, I've reduced the number to 5 people." Another time Launcha was also happy. "Skyla, because you wanted to see the sea, I moved the Empire's canal." Yet another time Launcha excitedly pointed to a clock and boasted, "Skyla, because you didn't have time, I changed the day to 26 hours. In his eyes, there was only Skyla. Skyla thought if she became the Duchess and had to clean up the mess left by Launcha, she would rather live alone in the countryside. Thinking of this, she coughed. Fabrice spoke up and called, "My lady." She became somber and asked, "Are you still concerned about the marriage that the Duke mentioned yesterday?" Skyla hesitated. She looked at Fabrice and couldn't help but exclaim, as expected of Fabrice, the maid who has served me for almost my entire life. Thinking this, she replied, "Never mind, because it's the law, I'm fine." Skyla thought to herself, "No need to rush because of my parents' urging." At this moment, Fabrice suddenly stood up and called, "My lady." She asked sincerely, "Suppose if someone of low status like me were accepted." Then she looked up, "Would you marry me?" Skyla froze upon hearing this. Fabrice's eyes were full of anticipation. The atmosphere at this moment was really awkward. Skyla was so stunned she stammered, "Well, what?" Fabrice asked with a serious expression, "Will you marry me?" "My lady, give me a month. I will return with a new identity." Hearing that proposal made Skyla extremely scared. On the outside, her expression was calm as she watched her continue speaking on her knees. "Even Duke Karen won't recognize it. I will prepare an identity worthy of you." Saying this, Fabrice suddenly looked up and said hesitantly, "So, if you would accept someone like me." Skyla exhaled and thought, "She's being serious." At this moment, Fabrice's expression was very sincere. Suddenly, she bowed her head and said in a small voice, "If my proposal was too impertinent, I apologize. It's just that I—" Before she could finish her sentence, Skyla interrupted, "No, don't apologize." She reached out and took Fabrice's hand. Recalling her past as a child, Skyla reminded herself, I have strived to become Duchess Karen since I was a child. I gave up time playing with friends and a leisurely, comfortable life. I did it all for my dream, but now I can't inherit the title just because I don't have a spouse. Skyla smiled and looked at Fabrice. She said seriously, I am very grateful for your sentiment, but you don't need to worry about me that much. In her heart, Skyla was saying, even Fabrice is frustrated, so that's why she's like this. Hearing that, Fabrice nodded. I understand. Outside, there was a sudden loud noise. Skyla was startled, and Fabrice had to turn and hug her tightly. Outside was the screeching of brakes. Inside the carriage, Fabrice asked worriedly, Lady Skyla, are you all right? Skyla held her head, dizzy, thinking, I guess I'll have to install anti-sudden stop magic too. Skyla angrily threw open the door with a thought. I don't know what's up with my luck these days. At this moment, she heard a voice outside say, Ego, my lord. Hearing the familiar voice made her wonder to herself, what is this familiar situation? The other party's coachman bowed his head apologetically. It's because I just got my carriage license not long ago, so. The Karen family's coachman interrupted. In that case, he suddenly shouted loudly, because you hit the ducal family's carriage. My fighting power has leveled up. You should drive slowly. What if my lady can't meet the crown prince? Can you bear the responsibility? The other party's coachman scratched his head and smiled guiltily. Sorry, but may I ask which family it is? The Karen family's coachman proudly introduced. You don't recognize the seal on the carriage? It's the ducal family of Karen. Hearing that the other party's coachman was immediately stunned. He knelt down hard on the ground, crying, Ego, please forgive me. Hearing the two of them talking, Skyla asked coldly, what's the matter? At the same time, there was another person's question, what is happening? There was the sound of a man's footsteps approaching. Viscount Adesina walked over with his hands on his hips. Skyla's inner voice rang out. A mage. Those earrings are magic stones. Only mages are allowed to use them because they have a high risk of causing accidents. Unlike the magical kingdom of Hepnia, the Empire doesn't have many mages. So when she saw a mage, Skyla frowned and thought, why is a mage here? When Skyla's eyes and the coachman kneeling on the ground met, surprise was evident. The coachman's jaw dropped, and he let out a cry when he saw her. He covered his mouth and made a sound of recognition. Oh, oh. The coachman pointed at Skyla's face, remembering the argument with her, and said, it's that crazy bitch. Suddenly a shout made him freeze. Hey! Skyla's whole body immediately flared up in anger. You've messed with the wrong person. I told you, didn't I? If you don't want your skull smashed, then you'd better live properly. The coachman knelt on the ground in fear and begged. Oh, lady, I have committed a terrible mistake. He rambled on, bowing his head. I have a small child at home waiting for me. Skyla crossed her arms and witnessed it all while thinking, well, unlucky for you. You thought I was a commoner and treated me rudely, but it turns out I'm Lady Karen. But whether I'm a lady or not, you should still speak. Carefully. Suddenly a voice rang out from behind. Excuse me, my lady. Viscount Adesina bowed his head in apology. It seems my coachman has wronged you. Even though he said that, in his heart he thought differently. Damn it, all this because I hired a cheap coachman. He stepped closer. Viscount Adesina placed his hand on his chest and bowed. I sincerely apologize, my lady, for wasting the time of someone as noble as you. I don't know how to compensate. He introduced himself. I am Viscount Adesina. You must be Lady Karen, right? Skyla said, yes. In her heart, she said to herself, this person is Viscount a something? Looking straight at Viscount Adesina's face, Skyla judged to herself, he's handsome. Skyla was lost in thought when she suddenly froze and realized, not as handsome as Lancia, but why am I suddenly thinking about Lancia? Skyla looked up and saw Viscount Adesina's expression. While he was thinking, this is the woman from the rumors. Viscount Adesina's face suddenly turned red, and he raised his hand to cover his mouth, whispering to himself, damn it, I'm going crazy. Why didn't the rumors say she was this beautiful? Seeing his expression made Skyla stunned. Viscount Adesina stepped closer and said, I want you to be mine. Skyla said with a contemptuous look, can you move aside? I have an appointment. But in her heart she was thinking, just another man like that. Viscount Adesina smiled and said, ah, of course. Viscount Adesina's carriage was moved aside. Skyla turned to leave with Fabrice. Let's go, Fabrice. After taking a few steps, Skyla heard a call, my lady. Viscount Adesina asked with a bright smile. How do you want to punish the coachman? Skyla said indifferently. I'll let the Viscount decide. Suddenly there was a desperate cry. Viscount. The coachman trembled while thinking of his bed and begged, Please have mercy. My bed is still lonely waiting for me to come home. Please spare my life. Viscount Adesina smiled and said to the coachman, Then hand over your carriage license. The coachman asked back, my license? Viscount Adesina's face darkened as he said, Do you think I'll say it a second time? The coachman hurriedly replied, No, sir. In front of Skyla's group, the other coachman handed his license to him. After taking the carriage license, Adesina used magic to make the license disappear before the coachman's trembling fear. All three of Skyla's group showed no expression of surprise because the Karen people were too used to Lancia's magic. Skyla smiled and thought, without a license he can't drive a carriage. Even if he gets it reissued, it means that coachman will be unemployed for a while. Compared to being imprisoned for the crime of insulting a noble, this punishment is too merciful. She turned and got on the carriage. Viscount Adesina called from behind, Lady Karen. He held out his hand and smiled. Unfortunately, now I have no one to drive my carriage. Fabrice's face darkened when she heard that, while Skyla was stunned and asked, So what? Viscount Adesina was already sitting properly in the carriage and introduced, Allow me to formally introduce myself to the lady. I am Viscount Adesina, a mage of the royal family. Both Fabrice and Skyla thought uncomfortably. He sat down like he owned the place. Skyla stared and thought, Really? Viscount Adesina smiled brightly and said, Could you give me a ride to the royal palace? Skyla told herself in frustration, More cunning than I thought. Adesina and Skyla sat opposite each other. She looked at him emotionlessly. He then said, Lady Karen is going to meet His Highness the Crown Prince. Right? She replied coldly. How does the Viscount know? She thought to herself, I feel like this is a dangerous man. Hearing that he smiled brightly and replied to her, It's nothing special. A face so beautiful it's mesmerizing, but it exudes a very cunning air. She showed her annoyance. I can't trust those who only look at my face and title. He replied casually, Your lady's coachman said it. If the lady can't meet His Highness the Crown Prince, can you bear the responsibility? She said, She was confused. I think something like that did happen. Adesina proactively asked, Does the lady often go to see His Highness the Crown Prince? She immediately said, No, more importantly. She got to the point, What is the Viscount's business at the royal palace? He said a name, Ganep Adesina. He smiled brightly and said, Please call me by my name. Don't call me Viscount so stiffly. In his head, he thought, It's just a fake name, but I want her to say it. She heard his thoughts and scoffed. She played innocent and said, Ganep, what a special name. Skyla sniped. It sounds like a nickname. He was startled when he heard that. He thought to himself, as sharp as the rumors say, the woman said to be the god of death in high society. She heard that thought and was annoyed. God of death? Where did that rumor come from? If I have to be called by that weird name. She was burning with anger. I'd rather be cursed. He hurriedly explained, It's probably because I'm from the kingdom of Hepnia that you think so. She scoffed. A noble from the kingdom of Hepnia, right? I heard that nobles in the kingdom of Hepnia are born with magic. Adesina replied seriously, The lady knows quite a lot of details. She smiled and said, Because I'm very interested in magic. Then she continued, So, what made the Viscount go into exile and take the title of Viscount in another country? Her question hit him right where it hurt. Him. He clenched his fists and said, Yes, I am a noble from the kingdom of Hepnia. He was worried. Damn it, she doesn't know my grandmother was a witch who served the Demon King, does she? She read his thoughts and was surprised. She was so shocked, she blurted out, A witch? He was shocked to hear that. Skyla realized she had misspoken. A descendant of a witch? Weren't all the witches eliminated during the purge of the demon clan? He became furious and used his magic, his voice low. Who are you, my lady? His hand summoned magic. Then he moved closer to her, about to strike. He said, Whether my magic causes harm or not depends on the lady's answer. She said calmly, Then do it. Adesina was stunned. What? She said it again. Go ahead and try. He was filled with confusion. Wait, this is not what I meant. She let out a small laugh. Karen, the top noble family in the empire, and I, a descendant of Karen. How could I be swayed by such a mediocre threat? He then gritted his teeth. He withdrew the magic in his hand and said, I apologize, my lady. He leaned close to her ear and whispered, My origin is a secret. No one can know. Skyla turned to ask him, So you want to kill me? She said calmly, If you harm me, the anti-assassination magic will be activated. You know that, right? Attacking a noble is a serious crime in the Empire. Viscount Adesina, we're not close enough to share a death anniversary, are we? He was stunned and hesitated. Wait. He stopped his magic and said, from the beginning, I never intended to kill you. She read his thoughts. I was just going to burn the lady's dress. He said with a flirtatious laugh, you're really something, my lady. She read his thoughts and was speechless. She sat up and punched him. Get the hell out of here. She thought to herself, Hinji, something feels off? What a pervert. He grabbed her wrist to stop her from punching. She was fuming with anger. He said, wait. Adesina pleaded, my lady, please don't tell anyone my secret if my identity is revealed. He held her hand tightly. She felt pain. Suddenly a wave of power hit him directly. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Lancia appeared from behind her. She felt a familiar warmth, so she wasn't surprised at all. He reassured her, it's okay now, Skyla. I'm here. She felt, because instinctively, I knew it was you. She looked up at him and called out, you. In her mind, she thought, where did you appear from? You were at home. Did you use teleportation magic on your own again? Adesina, stunned from the attack, was slowly sitting up. Lancia stepped forward. We can talk about my scolding later. She looked at his hand on her shoulder and thought, there are many things I want to say to him, but she smiled, filled with happiness. Having Lancia right here makes me feel so at ease. He became serious. Skyla, did that bastard hurt you? Adesina became tense when he heard that. She hesitated when she heard him speak. She panicked. Lancia just swore. He took her wrist and looked at it, his face becoming displeased. Adesina backed away and begged, wait, Mr. Blonde Mage. Then Lancia used magic. Don't you dare touch Skyla ever again. He begged desperately, wait, please listen to me. His face was cold. This is not a warning. It's a command. After he finished speaking, he was swallowed by the dark space, only managing to let out a scream. Skyla looked at the scene that had just unfolded before her. She called his name in astonishment. Lancia. He looked at her, confused. She trembled and pointed in the direction he had disappeared, asking, just to be sure, I have something to ask. She asked, just now, did you kill that mage? Lancia's face was cold. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, I'm sorry, Skyla. She was terrified, thinking he might have really killed him. Lancia said with a whimper, do I have to kill him? She immediately waved her hands. No, he said sadly, because I thought if I did that, Skyla would hate me so. She immediately reassured him. That's right, you did well. Skyla asked him, so what did you do to the mage? He was startled and said, I just threw him into a garbage dump outside the capital. That's all. Hearing that, she beamed. I see. Thank you for protecting me, Lancia. He then called her name again, Skyla, but she quickly extinguished that flowery emotion. But Lancia, can you explain in one sentence why you were in my carriage? Hearing that he pretended to ignore her, he pondered her words. One sentence. Then Lancia turned back, winked, and made a heart shape with his hands, saying, because I really like you, Skyla. She immediately slapped the heart shape. He cried out, 319 times. Skyla thought to herself, it's a good thing Adesina was chased away, but how did Lancia know to come here? Beside her, he was pouting because she had cracked his heart shape. I could just fix the heart. Suddenly she realized something. She turned to question him. Lancia, don't tell me you turned into a butterfly and followed me? He was startled at being found out. He immediately turned into a puppy-like appearance and said, Skyla, do you like a sincere man? Seeing that she knew the answer to her question, that's exactly it. He held a corner of her dress. It's because I was here that I was able to chase away that mage from before. She said, that's right, thank you. Then she pulled her dress away and continued, now you can go home. Lancia was worried. Skyla, are you mad at me? She didn't answer but ordered, hurry up. He became sad and fell silent. Then he turned to leave. I just wanted to see your smile. He opened a magic circle. I don't know what to do. His face was sad. To make you happy, Skyla. Then he left, leaving her there alone. She also became pensive upon hearing those words. At the palace at this time, the carriage had just arrived. Fabrice got out of the carriage. She knocked lightly on the carriage door and said, my lady, we have arrived at the royal palace. Then she opened the carriage door. Inside was only Skyla. Fabrice asked, the mage isn't here? She got out and said, he was busy, so he left using magic. The driver next to them was impressed. What amazing magic, and I didn't even notice. Fabrice seemed displeased. Why didn't he just piss off with magic from the start? Why ask for a ride? Suddenly a guard came and bowed. Welcome, Lady Karen. The guard seemed rather somber. Please follow me. The guard's face was gaunt, but she didn't pay much attention. In her mind, she thought, what should I do about Lancia? She was confused. The family carriage prioritizes safety. If he sneaks in like before, it will cause legal controversy. How can I teach him common sense? While she was thinking, the guard's attitude caught her attention. The guard's movements became increasingly stiff. She walked behind him, confused. What's wrong with him? She read his thoughts and became furious. The one who killed the red mountain goat beast with a single glance. The god of death of high society. She heard that and was speechless. Skyla was furious. This isn't the founding myth of a nation, is it? The guard said tremblingly, we have arrived. Standing in front of a magnificent palace, she exclaimed in her heart. How magnificent! She thought to herself, did they burn all the tax money on this? A maid came out and said, His Highness the Crown Prince is waiting for you. She followed the maid inside the palace. Skyla had arrived at the Crown Prince's location. He proactively greeted her. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lady Skyla. She replied happily, It is my honor to meet you, Your Highness the Crown Prince. She praised him silently. He's quite handsome, isn't he? She thought. That's why Aronia is always talking about the Crown Prince. He proactively said, My lady has traveled a long way to get here. It must have been a lot of trouble. He said, Have a seat. Before he could finish speaking, he tripped. Then he fell to the ground. She saw it and was bewildered. Both she and Fabrice were in complete shock. Should I help him up? He stood up. Oh, my apologies. His Highness the Crown Prince still had a bright smile. I have a condition where I trip a lot. Skyla was bewildered. Should I laugh? Is this a new kind of joke? He asked further, Is the person behind you the Duchess's maid? She replied, Yes, that's right. He said, I'm sorry, but please wait outside. She turned and nodded at Fabrice. They sat at the table. His Highness said, My lady is busy but still made time to come here. Thank you. She immediately said, Not at all. In her head, she was thinking, I can't hear his thoughts. She thought, is he a special person like Lancia? Then she bowed slightly and said, To be called by His Highness the Crown Prince is a great honor for me. He smiled lightly and said, Well, that's not wrong. That answer made her speechless. Then he picked up a teacup. Try it. This is a tea that only the royal family has. The lady will not be disappointed. The lady must be curious about the reason why you were summoned here. It's nothing. It's just that I have a favor to ask of the lady. She smiled without smiling and replied, I will do my best for His Highness the Crown Prince. She thought to herself, he says it's a favor, but he sent a royal letter. His Highness smiled and said, as expected of the future Duchess Karen. She felt proud when she heard that. I am a Karen. So, Lady Karen, will you become my fiancé? She was stunned when she heard that. Her face slowly changed from surprise to shock and confusion. Skyla asked with a tremor, Did I miss here? Skyla asked again, Did I miss here? His Highness the Crown Prince emphasized again, I wish for the lady to become my fiancé. She turned pale when she heard that and asked blankly, Why? In her head, she was in a complete panic. We don't even know each other, but he suddenly brings up engagement. What is his purpose? Is the Karen family neutral? Or does Crown Prince Fabunhai have no influence in high society? She hesitated. I am the god of death. His Highness froze when he heard that. Skyla realized she might have said something strange. She suddenly blushed. She shyly covered her face. His Highness couldn't help but laugh out loud. She said embarrassedly, If your Highness wants to laugh, go ahead. So he burst out laughing. I'm sorry, the god of death? He laughed so hard he fell off his chair. He sat up, still chuckling. I'm sorry. I'm the type of person who falls easily. She replied, It seems so. Then, Skyla returned to the main topic. Excuse my rudeness, but why does your Highness want me to be your fiancé? He replied, Sorry, I have investigated the lady. The lady is famous for being the most hot-tempered lady in the Empire, right? She was both speechless and annoyed to hear that. The Crown Prince made a proposal. After 1 year, we will break off the engagement. In return, I will grant one of the lady's wishes. He asked, So will the lady be engaged to me? Skyla put down her teacup and thought, What does the proposal have to do with being hot-tempered? Suddenly she thought of something. She quickly covered herself. Could it be that His Highness likes that kind of person? He was confused. What kind of person? His Highness wants a cruel woman to treat him brutally. That kind of preference. His Highness understood upon hearing that. He smiled brightly and said, Of course, that would also be very interesting, but I don't want to do that with the lady. She was speechless and thought, Did he just say interesting? His Highness continued, I just guessed that the lady is not interested in games of love. She asked back, a game of love? He pondered for a moment, then continued, I must find my future crown princess at this royal ball. Otherwise, I cannot inherit the throne of the emperor. He emphasized, the lady also knows the reason well. Only those with a marriage partner can inherit the title. I have been trained since childhood to stand alone, to become perfect, all for the sake of becoming emperor. But if I don't have a life partner, I can't become emperor. Isn't that too unfair? Through His Highness's words, she recalled her former self. The crown prince's situation was like her own. He smiled and asked, so, Lady Skyla, I think you will understand me. She immediately replied, all right, even if we marry, the crown princess can still inherit the title from her family. They shook hands. His Highness said, we will be engaged for 1 year. Each will inherit the title of their own family. She continued his sentence, after that, we will break off the engagement. His Highness smiled and gently reminded, my lady, don't fall in love with me, because I'm not interested in things like games of love. Skyla also confidently replied, it's a relief that your Highness is so professional. So the two of them decided, well, shall we draw up a contract? The conversation was over. She went to the carriage, Fabrice, to the Solly ducal mansion. She replied, yes, my lady. She sat in the carriage to calm down. I have to cheer Launcher up. Fabrice, opposite her, called out, my lady. She asked, His Highness the Crown Prince, and you talked for quite a long time. What did you two talk about? She answered casually, nothing special. She thought, this is one of the secrets I must take to my grave. The script the two had created at the royal ball. The Crown Prince will act as if he fell in love with me at first sight, dancing together in front of everyone. Next in the script, the Crown Prince will then propose to me, and I will accept that proposal. After the engagement ceremony, within a year, I will receive the title and break off the engagement. She was happy. I didn't expect it to be resolved so easily. I even thought about marrying Launcha. She read the thoughts of Fabrice opposite her. Ah, as expected of my lady, the woman who can make even the crown prince yield. If I could see my lady become the empress, I would die a happy woman. She couldn't stand those thoughts and screamed internally, please be quiet, Fabrice. But she continued to ramble on in her thoughts. What should I do? My lady is so radiant. It was dark at the Solly mansion. The butler bowed and said, Lady Karen, Duke Solly and the Duchess have gone to inspect the neighboring territory. So she had to leave. I know. I'll greet them later then. Cakes and tea were laid out on the table. She sat alone thinking, why hasn't Launcha come out yet? She rested her chin on her hand, bored. Whenever I come, he appears with teleportation magic. Rachel appeared and asked her, my lady, do you need anything else? She turned to ask, where's Launcha? The maid seemed flustered. Rachel said worriedly, I can't just say it. Skyla became serious. She stood up and asked, did something happen to Launcha? Rachel's voice faltered. Well, the young master is very sad. She froze upon hearing that. Skyla was confused. Sad why? Rachel replied, I don't know either. The young master has been gloomy ever since he returned home. In her head, she thought, after the young master went to see the lady, the young master locked himself in his room. How should I explain this? She read Rachel's thoughts and realized something. She realized the reason Launcha was sad was her fault. Rachel was still panicking. She requested, take me to Launcha. I will comfort him myself. Rachel looked as if she had found her savior. You'll really do that? She appreciated Rachel. Launcha, you're very lucky to have such a kind maid, because she genuinely worries about Launcha. Rachel happily led the way. This way, my lady. Rachel led her to the room. Please wait a moment. At this moment, Skyla had a headache. How should I comfort him now? It was Launcha's fault in the first place. Rachel gently pushed the door and called, young master. Before she could finish her sentence, the ceiling suddenly shook violently, then cracked, and debris fell to the floor. She stared blankly. What's happening all of a sudden? Then she vaguely realized, could it be a magical outburst? Rachel tried to knock on the door, calling, young master. Young Master Launcha. From inside the room, a voice echoed. Didn't I tell you not to come looking for me, Rachel? It startled both Skyla and her. Skyla thought to herself, is that really Launcha? Launcha has no merits other than being lively. A loud noise slammed against the door. The room door was severely damaged. Rachel fell to the ground in fear. So scary. She trembled, unable to speak. Young master. She thought, what if I get caught in the magical outburst and die? I was planning to marry Austin as soon as I saved up for the wedding. She burst into tears. Rachel's train of thought surprised Skyla. Austin, the butler? Since when? She quickly composed herself. This is not the time to talk about this. Skyla slowly stood up. She approached the door. She remained calm, even though the building was gradually cracking. A panic scream rang out. Lansha shouted, "I told you not to come looking for me, didn't I?" As soon as he finished, Skyla kicked the door hard. There was a wound on her foot. She said slowly, "Lansha." He was silent inside, while Skyla raised her voice menacingly. "If you don't want to be beaten, open the door now." Lansha quickly pressed against the door and whispered her name. "Skyla." She replied, "Yes, right now. Besides me, who would want to be by your side while you're having an outburst?" Her words made him visibly happy. She continued, "So open the door, Lansha." The door opened. Lansha stepped out joyfully. "Skyla." He hugged Skyla tightly. He let go and stared at her. "Is it really you?" Skyla was silent. Lansha rested his head on her shoulder. He whispered, "I'm not imagining things, am I?" His eyes welled up. "Did I miss Skyla so much that I unconsciously summoned you here?" She was still lost in thought. Whenever Lansha's emotions fluctuated violently, a magical outburst would occur. It was rare for Lansha to be so overcome by emotion that he couldn't control his magic. But he became suspicious when he saw Skyla was just quiet. You really are Skyla." She looked straight into his eyes. She frowned. "When Lansha has an outburst, I have to be by his side for him to feel calm again. Skyla, let's be friends so we can get married." Lansha blushed as he confessed to her. Skyla calmly uttered one word, "Get lost." He was excited. 320 times, "It's really you," which made her feel contempt. "What's that? What kind of recognition method is so annoying to hear?" She nodded to Rachel, who was standing there, and she left. "Skyla," Lansha whispered. She was curious. He was a little shy. You don't hate me, do you?" Skyla smiled. "What are you talking about? How could I hate you?" He said loudly. "I wanted to hide in the carriage to surprise you, but I was afraid you'd get angry, so." She was speechless and thought to herself, "So you turned into a butterfly instead?" Skyla comforted him. "Hiding in the carriage was your mistake, but it was also thanks to you that we got rid of that mage. Thank you." He was overjoyed. "Really? I did a good job." Lansha hugged her. "Thank goodness. I was so worried you'd be angry." Skyla's eyes were a little sad. "Is this really okay? If I'm not here?" She recalled the words of that person. "My childhood friend, who was an archmage, ended up losing his life at the age of 16. She turned pale with fear upon hearing that. The man continued, "What about Lansha?" The very moment he can't control his emotions. Her expression grew darker. "Skyla." Lansha's voice cut through her thoughts. She looked up. "Huh? Can you sleep with me tonight?" He asked innocently, which left her stunned, not understanding his words. Skyla asked, "What do you think my answer will be?" He immediately became excited. "Of course you'll say yes." She dismissed it. "That's what you're hoping for." Lansha stammered worriedly. "No? Is it a no?" She was annoyed. "Of course. How could you even think that?" He recalled when they were little, "But you used to sleep over at my house before." She refuted. "That was ages ago." Skyla sighed and pushed his hand away. "Lansha, think carefully. We're both adults now. Don't you understand the meaning of an adult man and woman sleeping together?" Lansha hugged her, still smiling. "Of course I understand," which made her blush and bite her lip. "It means our friendship is extremely close," he said innocently while Skyla was fuming with anger. She pushed him away. "You can't sleep with me. What if strange rumors start and I can't get engaged?" He asked again. "Skyla, you're getting engaged?" She realized her slip of the tongue, thinking, "Oh no, if Lansha finds out about my fake engagement, how will he react?" His eyes darkened. She pondered. Could it be another outburst? Lansha asked gloomily, "Skyla, you set a date for the engagement ceremony without telling me." She immediately defended herself. "No, that's not it." He took her hand, smiling. "I'll do a really good job, Skyla." He tilted his head. "Shall we use the true magic of the witch Odd as our offering? What do you think? It will match your red eyes very well." She was dumbfounded. Skyla came to her senses and immediately moved away from him. "Wait a minute." She panicked. "What do you mean our offering? What the hell are you talking about?" She was confused. "Besides, that's a holy relic of the Hefnia kingdom. It's impossible." He tilted his head innocently, looking sad. "Aren't we getting engaged?" She practically screamed. "No, we're not. Stop talking about getting engaged." Rachel interrupted their conversation. "Lady Skyla," she said worriedly, "is something wrong?" She stammered. That is." Rachel bowed her head. "The Duke and Duchess are not home today." She thought to herself, "It's so embarrassing to say this, but everyone is terrified of the young master's outburst." Rachel's thoughts made her reconsider. She asked, "You want me to stay here?" Rachel replied flusteredly, I'm sorry. I know I have no right to ask you." But she looked like she was about to cry as she pondered. "The lady will probably refuse because she's busy." So scary. Skyla was calm. "All right, I'll stay the night." Both Lansha and Rachel were overjoyed. However, Skyla set a condition. But in a different room from Lancia, Skyla tried to placate Fabrice, who was scowling opposite her. Fabrice, go back home and explain the situation to my parents. She thought to herself, just because of that troublemaker from the solid ducal house, I can't watch my lady sleep before my workday is over. Seeing this, she ordered, go quickly. Skyla walked to the bed, picking up the neatly folded pajamas. She mused, Lancia isn't being stubborn. She imagined Lancia demanding, why are you sleeping in another room? Let's sleep together. Skyla pondered, I thought he would make a big fuss. At that time, Lancia simply said, just sleeping in the room opposite Skyla's is good enough. She had to think back on his words. Lancia had turned his room into a pile of scrap, so that's how it ended up. At that moment, he smiled and invited her. And I have something I want to show you. Stop by my room before you sleep, okay? Skyla asked curiously, what do you want to show me? He replied, my diary. After changing, she went to Lancia's place. She wondered, why would he show me his diary? Skyla knocked on the door and called, Lancia. A servant next to her immediately said, well, young Master Lancia isn't done bathing yet. She opened the door and walked in. Skyla sat on the bed. She noticed a notebook lying right beside it. Is this the diary he was talking about? She flipped through the pages and read. Inside it was written, only I can read this. Skyla smiled and thought to herself, cute. The page had a note. If you read without permission, horns will grow on your butt. December 31st, year 815 of the imperial calendar. Today is the first time I confessed to Skyla. She pursed her lips, closed the notebook, deep in thought. I still remember it very clearly. Skyla lay down on the bed, continuing to ponder. That day, my parents had traveled to the Northern Sea, and I had longed for someone to be by my side, so unlike me. She began to recall that moment. Lancia sat worriedly beside her. He handed her a cup of water. Skyla, are you okay? She took it, simply replying to him, yeah. Lancia sat closer to Skyla. You know my eldest brother is getting married soon, right? She replied while drinking, yeah, of course I know. He confided, I'm jealous of him for being able to spend every day with the person he loves. Then he turned to say, so, let's get married too. His words made her choke on her water. Skyla coughed violently, thinking to herself, what did he just say? He was beside her, patting her back. Are you okay? She blushed, thinking to herself, marriage, me and Lancia? Skyla thought of them holding hands. She turned to look at him and asked, why did you suddenly say that? Then she hoped silently, could it be that Lancia, she probed, do you like me? Lancia put his hand on her shoulder. Yeah, I like you. He smiled and called her name, Skyla. Scene changed when they were both sitting and drinking tea. Skyla asked worriedly, but it's the end of the year. Is it okay for you to be sitting here like this? Isn't the solid ducal mansion holding a social party? Lancia replied while eating, it's fine. My two older brothers are there. I'm the youngest son. No one pays attention to me. She pondered, no matter what, family members should be together. Skyla fell into deep thought. My parents. His voice cut through her thoughts. Skyla, you should try this. It's delicious. As expected, I like the food at the Caranducal mansion more. That made her happier. It's a good thing Lancia is here. She took the plate of cake. Even so, don't just play at my house all the time. The guests will think you're being rude to them. He said resentfully, no one talks to me anyway. She thought to herself, the Archmage is a strange existence to them, so they feel scared of him, even though he's such an affectionate child. Like this, Lancia remembered something. He then said, but some old mage kept trying to talk to me. She was curious, an old man. Skyla listened to him recount. Right now in my house, there are even mages from the Hefnia Kingdom. He asks a lot of questions, so I don't like him. She reassured him, it seems he's very interested in you. Lancia sighed, but I'm only interested in you. Skyla blushed, stammering a little, don't say things like that. Just answer his questions. He put on a puppy dog face. Can I just cherish the people I like? Which made her blush even more. The maids around could only sigh. Skyla leaned close to his ear. Other people can hear. Don't just say this stuff to me so casually. Lancia was puzzled. Other people? In his eyes, there was only the panicked image of Skyla. Who? She realized her slip of the tongue. She whispered. You can only say that when it's just the two of us. He frowned in response. I can only say I like you when it's just the two of us. She looked helplessly at the maids standing right there and could only say, oh. So many years have passed already. Ever since meeting the mage from Hefnia that Lancia mentioned, everything has changed. Skyla lay deep in thought. Since then, I have resolved not to like Lancia anymore. Every time he approached, I refused, to the point that Lancia, who used to feel hurt, has now gotten used to it. Skyla's eyes were a little sad. It's okay. I was not wrong in my choice. Lancia's voice called Skyla. She woke with a start, turning to look at him, but he was only wearing a bathrobe. He asked, are you sleepy already? A drop of water from his hair fell, rolling down his firm chest. While Skyla stared blankly at him, Lancia asked again. She immediately blushed and shouted loudly, then sat bolt upright and stammered, Lancia, you, why are you dressed like that? Did you walk from the hallway to the room looking like this? Lancia sat down. She immediately shied away. He said, no, because I was afraid you'd be waiting. I teleported to the room. He snapped his fingers. His hair, like a little chick's, was instantly dry. Skyla, he turned back excitedly. Lancia lay down, patting the mattress. You lie down, too. Skyla was bewildered. Lie down? Does Lancia not know what it means for a man and woman to share a bed? If I don't lie down, it'll be even weirder. What if he asks why I'm not lying down? Then you explain it, Skyla. She lay down on the bed helplessly. Beside her was Lancia, who was smiling excitedly. He started a conversation. Us doing this reminds me of when we were little. We used to bet on who would fall asleep first. Do you remember? She frowned, a little annoyed, and you always lost. He tried. I'll win this time. She smiled faintly. Skyla turned over. What? Did you master a magic to stay awake? He chuckled. No, with you lying next to me, how could I possibly sleep? Which made her blush shyly. She lowered her eyes and suddenly saw something and stammered, but Lancia. Skyla practically screamed. Are you planning to sleep in just that robe? While he was confused, yeah. He answered casually, I usually sleep naked. She froze, thinking to herself, sleep naked? At 6 years old, he used to show off his glow-in-the-dark pajamas from the Hefnia Kingdom. She fell into a panic. Since when did he develop such a strange habit? Lancia yawned, startling her. Then Skyla immediately turned away. Quick, put on your pajamas. He tried to explain, it's hot when I sleep. She said loudly, just open the window to sleep. Hurry up. He pouted, all right. Lancia performed a spell. I'm wearing them now. She turned over when she heard him speak. Skyla thought, I can't believe I blushed seeing Lancia's bare skin. He whispered, I did as you said. In return, stay with me a little longer. Okay. He immediately laid down on the bed. The atmosphere around the two of them became intimate. She relaxed, gradually drifting off to sleep just a little longer. The next morning, Skyla woke up. She slowly sat up. She noticed Lancia lying next to her. Then she froze. Why is Lancia here? She panicked, then shot up. I slept with Lancia in the same bed. Skyla ran to the door, thinking to herself, no, it's okay. Just run. No one has found out yet. Suddenly a sneeze was heard. She stopped, looked back at him, and saw him curled up. Skyla pondered. He gave me the blanket. She gently took the blanket and covered him with it. Skyla noticed. He slept with his shirt unbuttoned, still exposed. She was helpless. Gosh, it'd be strange if you didn't feel cold sleeping like that. Suddenly, Rachel threw the door open and announced, Young master, it's an emergency. We can't find Lady Skyla anywhere. Both Skyla and Rachel were stunned. She blushed, closed the door. My lady, please take your time. She immediately tried to stop her. Wait. Rachel said worriedly, is something the matter? Shall I change the bed sheets for you? Her words made Skyla tremble. It's not like that. Lancia woke up. He grabbed the corner of her shirt. Skyla, did you sleep well? Rachel's thoughts appeared. When did they start having a physical relationship? She immediately panicked. No, Rachel, listen to me. Seeing that she couldn't convince her, she turned to him and said, Lancia, tell Rachel the truth. We just talked late into the night and fell asleep, right? He blushed and smiled. That's right. It's been a while since I felt this comfortable. Rachel misunderstood even more. A long while. She turned pale. It's not like that. Skyla quickly walked closer to her. Her face darkened as she threatened. Rachel, what you have seen must not be told to anyone, you hear? That made her confused, my lady. Skyla's eyes widened. If any strange rumors spread out there, I will issue a marriage ban on all servants at the Karen Ducal Mansion. And you won't be able to marry my family's butler, right? Rachel was flustered when she heard her say that. How? How did the lady know about that? She moved closer to her. Act wisely. Rachel, you know I like you. She could only reply, yes. She frowned, feeling guilty. I'm sorry, Rachel, but my plan cannot be interrupted. Scene change. Fabrice bowed. My lady has returned. If the engagement between you and the crown prince is announced, some nobles will surely go crazy and storm his place. Skyla ordered Fabrice. She replied, "Yes, my lady." She thought to herself, "I absolutely must not let them discover my weakness." She asked as she walked, "How much have my private assets amounted to so far?" Fabrice immediately answered, "About 30 million francs." She mumbled and calculated, "A count's annual income is about 1 million. That's quite a lot. The thing I can do right now is..." Skyla smiled smugly. "Fabrice, where's my mother?" She thought to herself, "Become the woman who makes the crown prince fall head over heels at first sight." One fine day, Skyla went for a walk with Fabrice. The sound of playing echoed from afar. "Duke, you caught me again." The Duke and Duchess of Karen were playing a game of chase. Duke Karen said with a laugh, "My love, you think I can't catch you?" That made Skyla feel a chill. He wrapped his arms around her, and they both laid down on the green grass. She pouted, "I don't know. Hugging me so tightly from behind is hurting my back." "I'm mad." He had to comfort her. "My lady, if your back hurts, shall we go on a hot spring trip?" The Duchess was excited. "Oh, the Duke is taking care of my spinal health too? I love it." He agreed. "Of course, my sweet love is more important than my own life." The scene in front of her made her hold her forehead, gritting her teeth, while Fabrice calmly pondered, "What sin did I commit to have to endure this sight every day?" She was surprised. "Even Fabrice thinks so." Skyla sighed and called, "Mother, father," which made both of them jump up immediately. Duchess Karen said awkwardly, Skyla, coming in without knocking like that is a bit rude, dear." She replied, "Where's the door to knock on?" which made the surrounding atmosphere silent. She spoke up to break the strange atmosphere. "So what's the matter?" Skyla came closer. "I need your help, mother." She was moved. "What? You need mother's help?" While Duke Karen probed, "What about father? Do you need this father's help?" She said calmly, "Do you want to take over the duties of the ducal representative again, father?" Duchess Karen was excited. "All right, what should this mother do for you?" She requested, "Turn me into the most beautiful woman at the royal ball." Skyla also said, "I've decided to find a husband at this ball," which shocked both Duke and Duchess Karen. She tilted her head and smiled, thinking to herself, "I have to say it like this to my parents. They will naturally accept my engagement to the crown prince." "Skyla, why all of a sudden, dear?" Duke Karen was immediately stopped by the Duchess. She exuded a dangerously murderous aura. "Skyla, do you know what people used to call me back in the day?" She said relaxedly, "I'm not interested, so I don't know." Her mother smiled. "Don't you dare be shocked. It was high society's killer, dear." She excitedly snapped the fan in her hand in two. Now she was stunned as she heard her mother say, "Yes." Her mother began to recount. "Back in my golden age, all I had to do was wink, and countless young masters would fall at my feet." Skyla wondered, was it magic? Duchess Karen ordered, "Fabrice." "Yes, my lady." She pushed her. "You're at a loss for words. Go take care of Duke Karen. We're leaving." That made Duke Karen cry out, "My lady, Skyla." Scene change. At the dressing room, Duchess Karen found it strange. This isn't right. She turned to ask, "Skyla, are you sure on allowance?" It made her a little angry. "I haven't received any in a long time. I earn enough." "Then why are the dresses like this?" Old, outdated dresses were still hanging on the rack. She immediately made a plan. "Quick, let's call a dressmaker. Who's the most famous these days?" She replied boredly, "Madame Bisley is probably fully booked until the day of the ball." Duchess Karen turned and said, "So what? There's nothing money can't solve." Skyla sighed. "Mother, Madame Bisley is a commoner with noble clients. Are you trying to ruin her career or something?" She thought. Madame Bisley aside, the nobles would surely protest vehemently. "The first goal is not to let others find a weakness. This method won't work." Her mother was impatient. "So what should we do? You don't have a single thing to wear." Duchess Karen calculated. "The other young ladies must have had their dresses made very early, right? That must be it, since the invitations were sent out a month ago." She looked up, an answer already in her mind. "That's right. There's nothing that can't be solved with money." Her mother continued. "The vast majority will wear dresses in the most popular style right now. Dresses that are too heavy and dazzlingly colorful." Skyla was calm. "If I can't find a trendy dress, then I will change the trend." The scene changes to a hallway area. A maid spoke up. "Hey, have you heard the news?" The other maid was curious. "What news?" She recounted, "I heard that someone has been secretly leaving boxes with the latest dress samples in front of people's houses lately." The girl next to her was astonished. "What? Really?" She continued thoughtfully, "Yeah, my cousin got one too. I heard it's the kind of dress the nobles wear." The girl beside her sighed, "Wow, I'm so jealous." A voice spoke up, jealous, startling the two of them. "La lady." Skyla sighed at their expressions. Both of them bowed their heads. "I am sorry for gossiping." She snapped her fingers. I'll give each of you a set. The two maids were bewildered, yes. Skyla turned away. You must dress beautifully when you go out. She calculated. When nobles choose outfits, quality isn't the most important thing, but the distinction from commoners. What if I make it so that commoners can also wear these famous outfits? She threw open the doors. A sparkling mermaid dress appeared. She mused, the nobles will automatically seek out new designs. I bought up all the dresses from every fashion store and distributed them everywhere. Right now, even a wanderer on the street is wearing a trendy dress. Fabrice announced, my lady, it's time for you to prepare. She replied, all right. In Skyla's room, Fabrice was grooming her hair. She asked, will you bathe first or eat first? She answered, I'll skip the meal today and bathe first. She thought to herself, the lady's hair is so soft. Then Fabrice obeyed, yes, I'll prepare it right away. She left to prepare. The space was quiet. Suddenly a voice spoke out. Skyla. Lancia appeared behind her. Skyla was startled. Lancia. She said, I can't play with you today. I have to attend the royal ball. He replied excitedly, I know, that's why I came, leaving her full of questions. He said joyfully, placing a hand on her, Skyla, will you dance with me at the royal ball? Skyla was bewildered, then horrified. You too. You're also attending the royal ball? Skyla's pale, sweaty face exclaimed, that's right, you're attending too? I completely forgot. Looking at Lancia's innocent, uncomprehending face, the thoughts in Skyla's mind raced endlessly. His father is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and his mother is the Queen's strategist. Obviously, Lancia would also receive an invitation. At this thought, Skyla's spirits sank in complete helplessness while Lancia, like a dog, relentlessly clung to her, demanding so, you'll have the first dance with me. Right? Faced with Lancia's request, and remembering the young man who had shaken her hand, Skyla's heart was full of resistance. I'm sorry, I can't, because I already have someone else. Skyla shot up, resolutely delivering her prepared refusal. I think there will be a lot of people at this ball, so I want to be as peaceful as possible. Knowing she would refuse, Lancia immediately said, I'll cast a sleeping spell on everyone. That way, there won't be many people attending the ball anymore. Seeing Lancia about to cast a spell to make everyone at the ball fall into a deep sleep, Skyla helplessly cried out, please stop. Then suddenly, a knock on the door was heard, along with the maid's voice, my lady, I have prepared your bath. Skyla answered, I'll be right out. After sending the maid away, Skyla turned to look at Lancia with a serious expression and asked, is there anything else you have to say? Knowing Skyla was hinting for him to leave, Lancia bowed his head, a little hurt, and said, I want to dance with you. Seeing Lancia still stubbornly wanting to dance with her, she also felt confused and asked, why? You're popular, the other ladies really like you. With that, Skyla turned to leave. Just as she was about to leave, Lancia's voice rang out, stopping her in her tracks. What about you? What? Skyla turned back to look at Lancia, a bit confused. Skyla, do you like me too, like the others? He asked Skyla calmly and slowly. Hearing his question, Skyla fell into a pensive silence, thinking to herself, like you, I can't say. Skyla frowned, a look of panic on her face. It made her remember a conversation. What will happen to Lord Lancia when that day comes and he can't control his own emotions? What will you do, my lady? For the one you love, can you deny your own feelings? It was that very conversation that made her decide to suppress her feelings. That's why I can't let you get too happy or too sad. I will keep our distance as it is now. After thinking, Skyla immediately changed the subject. I'm busy, you can go now. As she spoke, she reached for the doorknob, wanting to leave. Just as she was about to open the door, Lancia reached out and blocked it, her head pressing against his chest. Then his somewhat sad and pleading voice came from behind her. When you're not busy, can you like me a little? Skyla pursed her lips into a faint smile. Her eyes filled with a firm, cold resolve as she replied, sorry, I think I'll be busy for the rest of my life. Hearing her heartless reply, Lancia fell silent, his mood sinking. He forced a polite smile, trying to act calm, that I understand. 321 times. After saying a confusing sentence, Lancia vanished, leaving only the words, see you later, Skyla. Right after he left, Skyla fell silent, her eyes showing a hint of loss. It took her a moment to say a single word, okay. In front of the mansion gate, brilliant sunbeams shone down on a luxurious and formal carriage that was waiting. Suddenly, a call rang out, attracting the couple's attention. Father, mother. Skyla stepped out in an incredibly beautiful dress. Seeing her come out made her parents extremely proud and excited. They couldn't stop praising her. Your beauty is a national treasure, my child. Even though you're my daughter, You are truly beautiful, Skyla. Yes, yes, that's right. Hearing her parents' somewhat excessive compliments, Skyla sighed and replied, Yes, yes, I'll go find a husband. So you can stop now. It's so embarrassing. With that, her mother extended a hand towards her and asked, That's right. Did you bring the invitation? Skyla, with a deadpan expression, looked away and said, Tysep has it, mother. Yes, the invitation is in my hands. This ball would gather hundreds of nobles. Without an invitation, one could not enter. Without taking too long, Skyla said goodbye to her parents and left. I'll be back soon. In contrast, her parents seemed not to want her back soon at all, happily waving goodbye to her. You can come back late, dear. It's been a while since I've had time alone with my darling. Hearing the joy in her parents' voices as she left, Skyla felt a bit annoyed and said firmly, I'll be back soon. The carriage began to move. A voice rang out, Well then, let's depart. In the carriage, Skyla asked Fabrice about the dress. Fabrice, how is this velvet dress? Yes, Fabrice replied. It's perfect, Fabrice replied with a serious face. But inside she was incredibly excited, so much so that I want to become the lady's mirror in my next life. Hearing Fabrice's answer, Skyla replied, Is that so? Thanks. Skyla touched her earring while thinking. Velvet is still not widely known in the royal palace. When they find out this is an expensive fabric that commoners can't possibly afford, they will all be envious of this velvet dress. The velvet dress. Suddenly the carriage stopped, startling her a bit. Fabrice lifted her skirt and stood up, intending to check the situation, saying to her, Wait for me a moment, my lady. With that, Fabrice reached out and pulled back the carriage curtain to look outside. After seeing the situation clearly, she sat down and said, My lady, you might have to wait for an hour. Seeing that she had to wait, Skyla said with some confusion, Wait. Fabrice didn't hide anything and said, In front of us is a line of carriages heading to the royal ball. Looking at the long, tedious line of carriages, both Skyla and Fabrice felt a bit weary. Skyla tilted her head to look outside and said, I can't believe it. Good thing I'm not wearing a corset. Thinking that waiting in the carriage for a long time would be a bit stuffy, Fabrice made a suggestion. The wait is still long. Would you like to go out for a walk, my lady? The other people are also walking around outside. Skyla sighed in frustration and refused. No, I'm wearing high heels. Aronia, who was coincidentally passing by outside, saw Skyla. Immediately, she let out a cold laugh, her face showing malicious intent. Suddenly, she raised her voice, startling Skyla. Oh my, Lady Skyla, I didn't expect to see you here. Can you open the door? Seeing Aronia appear and pretend to be friendly, Skyla thought with disgust, You despicable thing, coming to make trouble when the other person can't ignore or avoid it. Looking at her smug face, Skyla felt a bit of contempt in her heart. That face looks like she's accomplished something amazing. It seems flipping the table wasn't enough. Skyla crossed her arms, closed her eyes, and said without paying any mind, Fabrice, open the door. The door opened, and Aronia naturally stepped into the carriage. Sitting in the carriage, Aronia smiled triumphantly and said with feigned friendliness, Long time no see, Lady Skyla. Looking at her fake expression, Skyla's heart filled with anger and annoyance as she thought, I, on the other hand, think we see each other a bit too much. After talking for a while, Aronia's attention turned to Skyla, looking at the sea blue velvet dress Skyla was wearing to the ball. Aronia opened her fan to cover half her face and thought with her eyes closed, always thinking she's better than everyone. But all she has is a dress like that. Who would wear something like this? Even commoners don't wear it anymore. As she thought, she glanced disdainfully towards Skyla. Seeing Aronia's gaze, Skyla knew what she was thinking and smirked mockingly, thinking, Haven't you heard the latest news? Skyla crossed her legs, her expression carrying a hint of pressure as she said, Lady Aronia, is there a problem? Her name being called, Aronia was startled and stammered in reply, Yes, that is my lady. Without letting her finish, Skyla cut her off. Do you know how the common people are living these days? Seeing Skyla ask her about the commoner's situation, Aronia was confused and said with a lack of confidence, A marquis's daughter like me, why would I need to know about that? Hearing her say that, Skyla became angry, her voice becoming sharper. Instead of happily laughing at home, why don't you try spending some time learning about the lives of the people? Being scolded like that, Aronia pursed her lips, looking at Skyla with displeasure. She thinks she's so high and mighty. Why should I have to learn about those filthy commoners? Skyla gave a faint smile and replied, because, my lady, you are wearing a dress identical to a filthy commoner's. This statement immediately caused the anger in Aronia's heart to erupt violently. She screamed, "What did you say?" Skyla asked, "This dress is made of velvet. Do you know what velvet is, my lady? Fools who like to act tough, how could they admit they don't know?" She said, Of course I know." However, her inner voice that reached Skyla's ears was, "Velvet, what is that?" Skyla was very pleased with Aronia's clueless but pretending to know attitude. So she continued, "Then you must know very well, a dress costs about 100,000 francs. As soon as Aronia heard the price, her eyes went wide. She even unconsciously blurted out 10, 100, 100,000, though she only misspoke that much. But her inner voice was what gave Skyla a headache. That dress is worth the entire family's average monthly income. What on earth is velvet? What is it? To Skyla, her inner voice was a bit annoying, so noisy. So she immediately spoke up to dismiss her guest. "You can go for a walk now, Lady Aronia. See you later." And so, Aronia was invited off the carriage, having been knocked out like that. Stepping down from the carriage, her eyes filled with hatred kept staring at Skyla. She lifted the carriage curtain to observe the situation. When she saw her back getting further and further away, she only felt relieved. Now that nuisance has finally gone. Aronia, as if sensing the stare on her back, immediately turned her head and smiled at her, which Skyla found very strange. A moment later, hearing Tysep muttering something in the front, Skyla couldn't hear clearly and turned her head to ask what was that. Seeing Tysep's fumbling search, she asked, "Did you lose the invitation?" Tysep stammered, "I clearly put in my outer coat. While waiting for the line of carriages, I felt hot, so I took my coat off. Could it have fallen out then?" Skyla, sitting in the carriage, listened as her face darkened. The detective neurons in Skyla's head operated at lightning speed and came up with an answer. It was Aronia. Skyla could only improvise. She ordered Fabrice, "Open the door for me." Fabrice replied respectfully, "Yes." As soon as she saw the two soldiers guarding the gate, Skyla immediately said, "Sorry to have kept everyone waiting." Seeing her, the two soldiers immediately blushed and got nosebleeds. While they had not yet recovered their senses, Skyla continued, "It seems my coachman has lost the invitation. Instead, can I verify my identity with my family's seal?" These soldiers were strictly trained and quickly regained their composure. "I'm sorry, but that's not possible." This answer made Skyla's resentment rise higher. She thought to herself, as I expected. On the other side, the guard was still fulfilling his duty, saying, "The Emperor has forbidden entry to the palace for those without an invitation." Skyla raised a hand to her forehead and thought, "Today, His Majesty the Emperor's son has scripted a confession for me." After a moment's thought, Skyla could only say, "For now, let's make way for those behind us." She suddenly widened her eyes and asked, "Why isn't the carriage moving?" As Skyla poked her head out to observe, a familiar figure came into view, Viscount Adesina. Knowing she was being held back by him, Skyla could only open her mouth to ask, "What's the matter, Viscount?" Adesina let out a few faint laughs and said, "As the royal sorcerer, I am responsible for managing the carriages coming in and out." But this person's inner voice was, "I'm doomed. Why did I have to run into the lady? What kind of life is this?" She gave a slight smile and said softly, "I've finally found someone I can talk to." She stared intently at Artesina and ordered, "Viscount Artesina, let me into the royal palace." He asked, confused, yes, thinking to himself, "Is that an order?" As she said this, Skyla thought, "I'm holding his weakness." To see how much weight that weakness carried, she smiled slyly and said, "Didn't you hear me? Don't make me say it a second time." Artesina laughed helplessly, raised a hand to his forehead and said, "Making things difficult for me is your specialty, isn't it, my lady? You're really too much." Though his words were chiding her, his inner thoughts reached her ears without missing a single word. This arrogant side is also charming. As soon as Skyla saw him like this, she immediately stiffened and even thought in confusion, why did his affection level increase? Artesina turned and instructed the soldiers, "Open the gate for Lady Karen." This command of his stunned everyone, and they all shouted in unison, "Sorcerer!" A gatekeeper spoke up, "Are you defying His Majesty the Emperor's command? In this empire, being exiled is not the end of it. Skyla thought in surprise. Exiled? The Viscount was exiled from the Hepnia kingdom. Though she thought this, she didn't say anything and quietly listened to them talk, that I will take responsibility. Open the gate. After giving the order, he spoke to her again. My lady, as per your command, I will let you into the royal palace. However, this time, you owe me, my lady. At this point, he even gave her a playful wink and asked, will you dance with me at the ball? Skyla was silent for a moment before replying to him. Me, Viscount. If you want to dance, find another partner. The carriage went straight into the royal palace, entering the hall. While she was dazed, she suddenly heard a familiar call nearby. Skyla. She turned to look, and when she saw clearly who was calling her, she exclaimed in surprise, Lancia. Seeing him all by himself, Skyla asked with curiosity, didn't you come with your parents? Why are you alone? Lancia replied cheerfully, I was waiting for you. Lancia roughly calculated the time and told her, it's been 5 hours. Skyla thought in surprise, 5 hours. Skyla's face became serious as she said, don't waste your time. Aren't you bored? Lancia smiled with his eyes crinkled and replied, no. When I think about you, I don't feel bored anymore. As he spoke, he extended his hand, gesturing for her to place her hand on it. Let's go in. Looking at his hand, she blushed slightly. Afterward, Skyla placed her hand on his, thinking to herself, considering he waited for me so sincerely. Then the two of them walked hand in hand into the banquet hall. In the magnificent main hall, as soon as Skyla and Lancia appeared, the crowd buzzed with excitement. Those two are the holy son and holy daughter. Although they arrived quite late, their appearance still became the center of the crowd's attention. Skyla looked around at the noble ladies who were all focused on her dress, and a sense of accomplishment immediately welled up in her heart. They are all captivated by this dress they've never seen before. The reaction is pretty good. Skyla glanced at the person standing next to her and couldn't help but think to herself, but why? He's not reacting at all. Seeing that he wasn't taking the initiative, she decided she had to do it first. Skyla cleared her throat lightly and asked, Lancia, don't you have anything to say? Seeing her suddenly ask, his eyes immediately lit up, and he said decisively, I like you, Skyla. Hearing that, she immediately said, no, not that. Skyla was finally out of options and asked directly, do I look especially beautiful today? He stared at her intently and then spoke, Skyla. His slender hand adjusted a few stray strands of her hair and continued, you are always beautiful. Do you want to hear me praise your beauty even more? In the end, how much more beautiful do you want to be? He said while stroking her long hair. At this moment, Skyla finally reacted, thinking to herself, wait, why is he suddenly too close? Everyone is watching. While she was feeling shy, Lancia's mood-killing voice rang out again, got it. Skyla immediately froze, stiff, and sniffed. Lancia held tightly to the thing in his hand and said, look, there's a ladybug on your hair, Skyla. She felt like she was going crazy, thinking to herself, and I was getting butterflies like an idiot. Wait, an unbelievable thought flashed in her mind, and she caught it. Skyla covered her face with both hands and screamed internally. Why did I get butterflies? Thinking it was a kiss? Was I about to accept this kiss? Could it be that I still like Lancia? With a thought like that, I'm going crazy. I'm going crazy. This action of hers was extremely confusing in Lancia's eyes. Just as she was fooling around, a voice rang out, oh my, Lady Skyla. It was none other than Aronia. She fanned herself with the fan in her hand and said mockingly, you're really late. Looking at her unpleasant expression, Skyla couldn't help but think to herself, doesn't she ever get tired? And Aronia on the opposite side didn't like her either, even bad-mouthing her in her heart. I don't usually see her face anywhere. Why does she keep appearing in front of me today? She already is Lord Lancia, but still comes here. What a sly fox. Skyla felt confused. The two of us rarely meet. Why does she hate me so much? She didn't want to argue with them, so she immediately grabbed Lancia's arm and pulled him away. Let's go, Lancia. However, Aronia wouldn't let her go so easily. She said in that strange voice of hers, talk with us for a bit. Skyla shot her a look and said, I have nothing to say. Stop pretending to be close. Aronia said, you're so heartless, my lady. I was so worried because you were late. At this point, she suddenly raised her eyebrows as if she had just thought of something interesting. Or, did you lose your ball invitation? Skyla furrowed her brow and laughed, Her inner voice transmitted to Skyla's ears without missing a word. She must have had a hard time without the invitation in her hand. Skyla looked at the person fanning herself and smiled, and thought, no surprise, the culprit is indeed you. With that personality, how can you expect to win against me? Skyla said with a smile, you worry too much, Lady Aronia. I am the representative of Duke Karen. I don't need things like invitations. She thought to herself, that's a lie, but whatever. Before Aronia's eyes that were bulging so much they were about to pop out, Skyla didn't forget to stab her one more time. A lady from a Marquis's family might not know about this privilege. As expected, just being provoked with a few sentences, Aronia immediately shouted, Lady Skyla, you are being rude. However, before she could rush forward, Lancia blocked her way and said coldly, my lady, can't you see? Skyla is very uncomfortable with you, my lady. His words, which showed no respect for anyone, made Aronia immediately freeze. In Lancia's eyes, which were usually filled with smiles, there was now only a warning and coldness. Immediately, get out of Skyla's sight. This firm attitude of his not only stunned Aronia, but the two ladies following her also turned pale with fear. In the end, Aronia's group could only leave in dejection. At this moment, Skyla was still dazed by his recent appearance. She hesitated and called out, Lancia. She looked at him and thought to herself, his mood right now is the emotion I felt when he faced Viscount Artesina. It's so strange, completely different from the way he looked at the ladybug. Just now, seeing that he didn't answer her, Skyla reached out and gently patted his shoulder, calling out once more, Lancia. Who would have thought that as soon as he turned his head, the familiar golden-haired puppy Skyla knew returned? Did I do a good job? At his question, Skyla's jaw dropped and her eyes widened, not knowing what to say. The big puppy Lancia saw her dazed look and didn't mind, still chattering on and showing off. Because I saw that Skyla didn't like those ladies, I chased them all away. I didn't even use magic. See how good I am? So praise me. After he finished speaking, he lifted her hand and gently placed a kiss on it. Finally, this person even blushed and smiled at her, pleading, please? However, faced with such an intense beauty attack, Skyla felt that something was not right. She immediately pulled her hand back and thought to herself, this is unsettling. He's still confusing himself, thinking he likes me. Although he's an affectionate person, I'm afraid this affection of his will shatter at any moment. While she was in turmoil, an announcement rang out, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince has arrived. Everyone's eyes turned towards the main doors. The entire grand hall suddenly became silent, making the sound of the Crown Prince's footsteps echo clearly. He appeared ridiculously handsome. He had only been inside for a few minutes, but one of his smiles had already made countless girls fall head over heels. One of them even fell in the most literal sense. A lady next to her saw this and immediately panicked. Hey, don't faint just because of the Crown Prince's beauty. Skyla helplessly thought to herself, no, it's not to the point of fainting, is it? Seeing her, as if she was deep in thought, Lancia at her side asked, what's wrong? You. The beauty attack came so suddenly that she couldn't handle it. Skyla immediately turned her face away and replied, it's nothing. But in her heart, she was thinking, who would have thought I'd find him more handsome? Just as the two were talking, the Crown Prince's voice suddenly echoed throughout the main hall. Where is Lady Skyla? Just as he finished speaking, our four eyes met. The Crown Prince flashed a smile as bright as the summer sun. Skyla thought in a panic, did he just call my name directly? Or am I imagining it? And then his next action made Skyla immediately scream in her heart, no, don't come over here. At the same time, the inner thoughts of the gossiping crowd around her also fell into her ears. What is His Royal Highness the Crown Prince looking for the lady for? Skyla screamed in her heart, I'm just as shocked as you are. She recalled their plan and couldn't help but scream, this isn't how it was supposed to go. Our plan was to create a love-at-first-sight atmosphere, but he's coming straight to find me. While she was still unsure how to deal with the situation, the whispers made her break out in a cold sweat. Oh, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Lady Karen know each other. Probably something is strange. Skyla looked at the person getting closer and closer to her and continued to scream in her heart like an escaped animal. The pace is too fast. But what could she do? She silently comforted herself. Well, at least I have to pretend it's love at first sight. And yet, just as she was about to act, something unexpected happened. Lancia grabbed her hand tightly. Looking at his handsome face, which now clearly showed anxiety, Skyla couldn't help but blurt out, Lancia, As soon as Lancia heard her speak, he immediately frowned pitifully and said, "Don't go." Skyla let out a confused huh. Lancia continued to speak in a pitiful voice, "Stay with me, please." His appearance, as if he could cry at any moment if she left, made Skyla's eyes widen. But before she could escape Lancia's beauty attack, the Crown Prince was already in front of her. He spoke, "The lady is here." Skyla hesitated and greeted him, "You are your Royal Highness the Crown Prince." Hearing her greeting, he extended his hand and said with a smile, "Share a dance with me." This invitation to dance made everyone here's jaws drop, and they let out a collective "oh." Skyla could only force a smile. "Yes, I would be delighted." As she spoke, she extended her hand. Lancia immediately grabbed her other hand tightly. Right after that, he spoke to his rival with a challenging tone, "Your Royal Highness the Crown Prince. It seems your highness has a very bad habit, doesn't he? Liking to steal other people's dance partners." Skyla stood in the middle, not knowing what to do. The two men, however, were not looking at her, but were staring at each other with eyes that seemed to spark with fire. This series of events, like something out of an idol drama, made Skyla break out in a cold sweat as she cursed internally. "What the hell is he saying?" Skyla broke out in a cold sweat, looking worriedly at Lancia as he faced the Crown Prince. She thought, "Lancia, what kind of nonsense are you spouting? The other person is the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince." The Crown Prince spoke gently. "Lord Lancia of the Ducal House of Sali, I presume, right? I'm always indebted to your father, young master." Before he could finish his words, Lancia bowed his head and said seriously, "Please stay away." The Crown Prince frowned slightly, asking in surprise, "What was that?" Lancia showed a look of displeasure on his face. He repeated his words, "I said your highness should not get close to Skyla." The Crown Prince seemed to just stand there dumbfounded by those words. Skyla looked at them worriedly. She thought, "He's crossing the line." Skyla turned to speak, "Lancia." Suddenly, a voice rang out, "Oh my." A young man with blonde hair appeared from nowhere and put his arm around Lancia's shoulder from behind. He gave a forced smile and said, "My dear little brother." Lancia's older brother quickly defused the situation. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, my little brother is still young. Please be generous and overlook this." Lancia coldly shrugged his brother's hand off his shoulder. Himself. Skyla was surprised to see him. She exclaimed, "Hova what?" Hova what smiled brightly and greeted Skyla. "Long time no see, Skyla. This is Hova what Sali, Lancia's older brother." She thought to herself, "I heard he became a royal knight, but he's gotten so muscular I almost didn't recognize him." Hova what looked at Lancia helplessly. He silently chided, "This kid Lancia, what will we do if our family is put at a disadvantage?" Lancia glared angrily at his brother. Even Hova what flinched at that expression. He turned pale and looked at Skyla. "Save me, Skyla." It was her turn to speak. "Lancia, you should step aside." Lancia only managed to utter one word, but he was immediately lectured by Skyla. "You're doing this to me. I don't like it." She looked seriously at Lancia and said. His face was a mixture of surprise and a little worry. Lancia stammered, "What?" Skyla turned to take the Crown Prince's hand and said, "Let's go, your Highness the Crown Prince." She and the Crown Prince left hand in hand. Lancia stood frozen, unable to utter a word. The sound of a romantic contemporary cello filled the space. Skyla danced hand in hand with the Crown Prince. The conductor was coordinating rhythmically. All these favorable conditions brought the distance between Skyla and the Crown Prince closer. The Crown Prince suddenly asked, "I've heard rumors that the ladies' dancing skills are very poor." Skyla asked in surprise, "Who said that?" He answered her, "The ladies' friends. But seems I heard wrong." His hand rested more firmly on Skyla's hip. Skyla smiled happily. The Crown Prince continued his story, "Because the lady has no friends." Aronia and the two young ladies behind them looked on, so jealous they could only let out a sigh. The blonde lady said, "In the end, who made the dress that Lady Karen is wearing?" The conversation between the two young ladies continued. "It seems there's no need to wear a corset, and the design also exudes an elegant aura." One young lady asked, "Should we try asking about the material of Lady Karen's dress?" The other replied, "I hope the first dance ends quickly." Aronia clearly showed her displeasure on her face. Herself, Skyla, and the Crown Prince were still lost in the dance. A thought suddenly crossed her mind, making her worry. "I wonder if Lancia is okay? I don't hear any sounds of breaking, so his magic probably didn't burst out. Because of the engagement plan, I have no other choice. Was I too harsh?" Suddenly a voice startled her. "Lady." Skyla. It was none other than the Crown Prince. He gave a gentle smile and said slowly, busy thinking about another man. Am I not that charming? Skyla replied in confusion. Another man? I am very honored to be dancing like this. The Crown Prince smiled. He spoke inanely, right? The Crown Prince said, but I think the statement that the lady has no friends is a lie. Young Master Lancia was so angry his eyes looked like they would shoot fire. Indeed, Skyla quickly replied. Lancia spoke improperly to your highness. I apologize on his behalf. The Crown Prince wondered, young Master Lancia is the one who did wrong. Why is the lady the one apologizing? Skyla gave a confident smile and answered him, because he is my friend. Hearing that, the Crown Prince skipped a beat. He said, I don't want to complicate things, Lady Skyla. She tried hard to protect her friend, probably. But if things get complicated, it's for another reason, not Lancia. The Crown Prince was puzzled. Another reason? Skyla's face flushed as she answered his question. Didn't your highness seek me out as soon as you arrived at the hall? Because your highness has absolutely no connection to me. The other nobles are suspecting us. You should at least have looked at the other young ladies, right? Skyla was flustered by the Crown Prince's silence. She suddenly perceived his thoughts. Just talking is this enjoyable. This is the first time I've felt this way. Skyla was surprised in her heart. The Crown Prince's thoughts? Suddenly, he accidentally stepped on her dress. The two of them staggered, about to fall. The two fell to the floor. Skyla sat up, dazed. She thought to herself, because I couldn't hear his thoughts, I thought he was special like Lancia. The Crown Prince spoke. The rumor about the lady's poor dancing skills seems to be true. Skyla seemed to have realized the current situation. She was now sitting on top of the Crown Prince with one hand on his chest. He said, stopping like this in the middle of a dance is truly awkward. Skyla scrambled to her feet and stammered, I'm sorry. She said to herself in her thoughts, it's because I was surprised to suddenly hear his thoughts of him. The Crown Prince gently wrapped his arm around her waist. He comforted her, don't worry. As I said, I have a condition where I fall easily, but what should we do? Everyone is watching. Will they believe we really fell in love at first sight? As he spoke, he used one arm to pull her close to him. To everyone's astonishment, the Crown Prince teased, it looks like the lady fell for me first. Skyla was extremely flustered. She frowned and replied, Your Highness, let me go. The Crown Prince carefully raised his hand to her cheek and expressed himself. I want to emphasize my point once more. I don't want to complicate things, and I like you, my lady. Skyla's eyes showed clear surprise. He was face to face with her and said, honestly, as you suggested, my lady, why don't we show everyone something else? The Crown Prince placed his thumb on Skyla's lips, a sight that left her wide-eyed and speechless with surprise. He looked at Skyla with affectionate eyes and a slight smile on his lips. Despite the surrounding people paying attention, it seemed only Skyla was helpless in this situation. The Crown Prince suddenly burst out laughing. He laughed out loud in front of the other nobles. The Crown Prince stood up and extended his hand to her. He teased Skyla. How dare the lady make that face at me? Does the lady not like me? Skyla's expression was flustered. She hesitantly reached her hand towards the Crown Prince and replied, I'm sorry, but my standards are quite high. He gently took Skyla's hand. The Crown Prince suddenly placed a light kiss on the back of her hand. The Crown Prince looked at Skyla with a smile and said, I was very happy to dance with you, my lady. She looked at him, but couldn't say a word. It seemed the dance had come to an end. The Crown Prince placed a hand on his chest and spoke, I will contact the ducal family directly. Skyla also curtsied in return. The Crown Prince turned and walked away. Skyla seemed to feel something about the kiss just now. She lightly scratched the back of her hand. Suddenly, someone approached Skyla from nowhere and spoke. Lady Skyla. A young man with light brown hair with golden highlights and a shy appearance appeared beside her. Skyla rolled her eyes sharply. She thought to herself, it's starting again. Someone must have dared him to try and ask Lady Karen to dance. I'm sure of it. Her expression changed instantly. Skyla angrily muttered, wanting to turn me into a laughingstock for their amusement. How dare they? The young nobleman, just as she predicted, spoke up. Lady Skyla, could you dance with me? Before he could finish the sentence, Skyla replied bluntly, I refuse. Her words were like a stone weighing on his head. The bewildered nobleman exclaimed, What? Why? In his heart, he thought, a man like me isn't bad at all. Why refuse so immediately? Skyla didn't even spare him a glance. She replied haughtily, because His Highness the Crown Prince wouldn't like it. The young nobleman seemed shocked by those knife-like words. He stood there like a fool. The young ladies around wouldn't stop gossiping. Skyla understood I know. It's no coincidence that the crown prince chose me as his opening dance partner. He would rather make an official announcement than let people. Suspect. Suddenly a group of young ladies holding their dresses rushed towards her. They called out with bright smiles, "Lady Skyla." That young nobleman was immediately pushed aside. One young lady spoke up. That dance with the crown prince just now was very beautiful. Skyla was bewildered. What is it now? Another girl gave a shameless smile. She said, "If it's all right, my lady, please join us for tea." Skyla could clearly read their thoughts. His Highness the Crown Prince is especially fond of Lady Skyla, isn't he? Since when? How? Is the dress the lady is wearing made of velvet? Another person maliciously thought, "I can't believe it. Where did she get something so expensive?" Skyla also understood the situation clearly. She told herself, "These people don't really mean to praise me. They just want to know the inside story." These girls were annoyingly thick-skinned. They laughed loudly and urged her, "We've already prepared snacks. Let's go." Their real desire was for Skyla not to leave. She was angry inside. These people, why are they so persistent? Suddenly, someone's footsteps approached and a voice spoke up. "Excuse me, but I have a prior appointment with the lady." It turned out to be Viscount Adesina. Seeing him, Skyla called his name. A young lady hesitantly wondered, Who is that?" He bowed his head slightly and introduced himself. "I am Viscount Adesina, a royal mage. It is my honor to meet the noble ladies here." Those girls immediately switched their target to Adesina. They quickly tried to get acquainted. "So you're the mage? Sorry, we didn't know because we've never seen a mage before, so." He gave a friendly smile and quickly chatted with them. "It's all right, but I have something to discuss with Lady Karen." "I'm sorry, but may I have the lady to myself first?" It seems the Viscount's goal was successful. The young ladies agreed immediately. They also replied to him, "We will wait." Skyla sighed in relief, thinking to herself, as expected of a mage, this empire has many mages, so he is very popular. Viscount Adesina turned to her and said, "Shall we go, Lady Karen?" Skyla averted her eyes. The night sky covering the building exuded a magnificent and mysterious beauty. At this moment, she was chatting with Viscount Adesina on the balcony. Skyla crossed her arms and spoke, "Thank you, Viscount." He said nothing and just stared at her. Skyla asked, bewildered, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Adesina replied, innocently with wide eyes, "No, it's just, I didn't think I would receive thanks from a lady." She was dissatisfied with his answer. "What do you mean by that?" The Viscount took the chance to sneak a peek at Skyla's face. She was startled because she could see Adesina's thoughts. Her beauty is too stunning. Even more beautiful today. He blushed and said slowly, "Normally the lady would have grabbed me by the collar and given me a beating. But now you're so gentle, so I'm confused." He carefully cleared his throat and spoke. "Anyway, I actually have something to say to the lady." In Adesina's mind, he thought, I have to make her promise not to reveal my identity. The Viscount had only just thought it, but he immediately got her answer. "Don't worry, I won't tell anyone about the Viscount's secret. I swear on the honor of the ducal house of Karen. I swear." He looked at her as if 1,000 questions had sprung into his mind. Adesina uttered, "Why?" Skyla smiled lightly and teased, "Or do you want me to go and tell everyone?" The Viscount's cheeks flushed pink. He averted his eyes slightly and said, "That's not it." In the night sky before them, brilliant fireworks exploded. Skyla glanced at Adesina. She felt something was not right. Is he in turmoil? His thoughts are too complicated. He hesitated. "My lady, you are truly very kind." Skyla gave a silent laugh and replied, "I don't think that word should be used in this case." "Here." The Viscount suddenly lowered his head. He said restlessly, "The lady doesn't take advantage of my weakness. If that's not a good deed, then what is?" She stood up straight. Skyla looked seriously at Adesina and said bluntly, "It's just the obvious thing to do. Who wouldn't want their own secrets to be kept safe? Knowing someone else's weakness and doing nothing about it, that's normal." His face flushed, moved by Skyla's words. Adesina felt giddy. He raised a hand to his chin, thinking about something. The Viscount seemed to have had his heart captured. Skyla wore an emotionless expression. She understood her own ability well. "I have a secret too. I don't want my life to be threatened by the curse of hearing other people's thoughts. To be honest, whether he's the descendant of a witch or the grandfather of a witch, I don't care." Skyla looked away. She muttered, "It's really cold." Adesina finally spoke up. "It seems I have misunderstood you all this time, my lady." She wondered, what misunderstanding? He carefully voiced the thoughts he had held for a long time. "Initially, I judged you based on the rumors in high society, that you were someone who would readily exploit my weakness. But looking back now, I see I was wrong. You are an upright and righteous person, my lady. Skyla thought helplessly and awkwardly. Huh, did you forget? I already took advantage of you. Adesina bowed politely and expressed, I am truly sorry. The kind lady let me into her carriage, but I shamelessly threatened you. Skyla just stood there listening to him speak. The Viscount placed a hand on his chest. He said sincerely, please forgive me. She smiled and replied, you also opened the palace gate for me today. Let's consider it even. Adesina avoided Skyla's gaze. A beautiful red crystal appeared in their conversation. The Viscount recounted the holy relic of Hepnia. Have you ever heard of the witch O's magic stone? She hummed in response. He continued, then you must have also heard the legend that says, whoever possesses the stone will capture the affection of the one they desire. The Viscount took a step closer. Adesina lost himself in her eyes and said, it's as if you were holding that magic stone, my lady. Indeed. He raised his hand to fix Skyla's hair and then called her name, Lady Skyla. May I call you by your name? Adesina said with utmost sincerity. His heart. Skyla's expression became somewhat serious. Adesina was still smiling. He looked very happy. She crossed her arms and called his name, Viscount Adesina. It's Lady Karen. Adesina was startled by Skyla's words. The atmosphere became serious. She warned him, didn't I tell you to find someone else if you want to play games? The Viscount tried to avoid her gaze. She suddenly thought, he's the one who threatened me. There's no way I can feel sincerity from this person. He took a step back. Adesina replied, yes, I was rude. Skyla was a little surprised by the Viscount's action. She felt helpless as she imagined her childhood friend. He retreats so quickly. If it were Lancia, I would have to coax him for a long time before he'd give up. Suddenly, Skyla realized something. She looked in the Viscount's orange-gold eyes and told herself, now that I look closely, he has a rare eye color in the Empire. The Viscount confidently made a cute gesture with his hand. He smiled with his eyes crinkled. Does the lady like this face of mine? Skyla replied helplessly. It's just the first time I've seen eyes of your color. Adesina smiled happily and flirted. Is that so? Then you can come closer and take a better look at them. Skyla blinked, speechless at him. Her inner voice spoke. So that's how it is, not the type to retreat quickly. Huh? Even more persistent than Lancia, someone who doesn't know how to yield. She turned away sharply and said coldly, if there's nothing more to say, I'll be leaving first. Adesina foolishly said yes. He hurriedly ran after Skyla's footsteps. The Viscount said breathlessly, are you going back to the ballroom, my lady? How do you plan to deal with those noble ladies? She replied coldly, goodbye. Adesina arrogantly boasted, I am a mage. It seems the lady has forgotten. I can send you to my carriage. Hearing that, Skyla paused for a moment. She wasn't shy at all, but instead said, then forget the carriage. Just take me back to the Garnet Ducal Mansion. The surprised Viscount just said yes. Skyla, emotionless, glared and questioned him. What? Is there a problem? Adesina explained in confusion. There is strong protection magic in the royal palace. I cannot pass through that magic. She smiled and realized. Lancia did it. Skyla turned away once more. Then I'll be leaving first. The bewildered Viscount tried to hold her back. Wait. His eyes welled up with tears. Adesina whined. I will take you home in a cuter way, my lady. Skyla wasn't very interested. She asked, what? The Viscount immediately cast his magic. He boasted confidently. My lady, watch closely. The magic circle was so bright that Skyla had to close her eyes and raise a hand to shield them. She gradually opened her eyes, and suddenly there was a strange cry. Meow. Skyla was helpless and speechless at what appeared before her eyes. Adesina had turned into a cat with sleek black fur. He kept crying out, meow. She couldn't believe her eyes and wondered, could that be Viscount Adesina? The Viscount wrapped himself around her leg and boasted, what do you think? Transformation is the signature magic of a witch. Even young Master Lancia, a great mage, can't do it, right? Skyla was both helpless and contemptuous of him. Adesina rolled on the floor, acting cute. He thought to himself, maybe the lady will find me cute this way. The Viscount continued, I will turn you into a butterfly to land on my back, my lady. She was utterly contemptuous, Skyla's thought said. This is the first time I've met someone with no self-respect like him. She looked away, dejected, and decided, I'll walk. The Viscount's eyes glistened with tears again. He whined, What? Why? Skylar replied coldly. Because I don't see the need to do that. The Viscount's jaw dropped in surprise. With tears in his eyes, he approached and patted her with his cat paw, reproaching. Seeing such an adorable cat, how can you still be so cold, my lady? You're a wooden statue, a glass doll. Skylar reached out to leave. She said goodbye. Even so, thank you for showing me a rare magic. I'm leaving now. Suddenly, Adesina shot up into the air. He let out a loud meow. The next second, the Viscount was curled up in Skyla's arms. Suddenly, Aronia appeared from nowhere, a wine bottle in her hand, rushing straight at Skyla, despite the butler trying to stop her. My lady, you cannot enter here without permission. You go back, Aronia said loudly. What do you mean I can't? Lady Skyla is here, isn't she? Meanwhile, Skyla was surprised, not understanding what was happening. She recognized Aronia. The drunken woman approached Skyla and slurred. Lady Skyla, so you really are here. She thought to herself, still not tired of this, Aronia? Skyla raised a hand to cover her nose from Aronia's smell of alcohol. She asked, how much did you drink? The surprised butler thought, do they know each other? Skyla ordered him. You may go. In her heart, she thought, causing a scene is of no use. Adesina was still enjoying the moment in her arms. Aronia and Skyla stood face to face. She was drunk, her whole face flushed red. Aronia spoke, I'm not drunk. Both the Viscount and Skyla had the same thought. She's drunk. She lowered her head. The thoughts in Aronia's heart also became clear. I tried so hard today, she said slowly. I really hate you, my lady. Skyla read Aronia's every thought clearly. Why didn't His Highness the Crown Prince dance with me? Why did he dance with Lady Skyla instead? And the dress, why did that scrap of fabric attract more attention than me? Skyla reminded her helplessly. Lady Aronia, if you don't want to be embarrassed, you should go back. She retorted, why did you go tattling to my father? Last time, you ruined my business deal. As soon as Aronia finished, Skyla explained, I gave advice before that business deal failed. Her eyes filled with tears, and she shouted. After that, do you have any idea what my position is in the Garnet Mansion? Skyla still replied coldly. I don't know. Aronia yelled in her face. Yes, how would you know? She came closer and pointed a finger at Skyla's face. Aronia said jealously, because from the very beginning, Lady Skyla has always had everything in her hands. She slowly retracted her finger and recounted. Me, I'm actually not the legitimate daughter of a Garnet descendant, but an illegitimate child. My biological mother was a maid in the Marquis's mansion. Skyla just hummed along with the story. She recalled her past when she was little. The Marchioness Garnet held no ill will towards me, but my mother assassinated the Marchioness, and after the Marchioness died, my father reluctantly adopted me. Her face was tear-streaked. My half-siblings treat me like trash. Even the Marquis, who was on my side, locked me in the attic because of the spice business incident. I thought that if His Highness the Crown Prince took notice of me, my living situation would improve. Skyla called her name. Aronia. Aronia raised a finger to wipe away her tears. She said, Humph, are you going to apologize to me? No need. Skyla was blunt. Apologize? Why should I apologize to you, my lady? She said directly. The two girls stood silently facing each other. Aronia's face fell, and she stepped back in panic. Yes, Skyla added. Yes, your circumstances are pitiful, my lady, but why do that to me? She was extremely skeptical. Because your circumstances are not good, you're allowed to steal someone else's ball invitation? Hearing this accusation, Aronia became frightened and stammered. That matter. How did you? Skyla used her eyes to tell her. Circumstances and faults are two different things. Are you trying to forgive your own wrongdoing and make excuses for yourself? Then suddenly she asked an unrelated question. You're still short 5 million francs. The girl asked blankly. What? What was that? Skyla repeated. I gave you 5 million for your business, didn't I? Where did you throw it away this time? She added, if you need more, I'll give it to you. Hearing her words, the girl blushed and lowered her head. Finally, Skyla looked straight in her eyes and emphasized every word. As long as you never appear before me again. Before leaving, she left one last remark. Sober up before you go in. Leaving Aronia standing there in overwhelming silence. Inside the mansion, the cat in Skyla's arms was acting cute. It kept rubbing against her in a very adorable way. The cat thought happily. The lady isn't going to take me home with her, is she? Hearing this thought, she was speechless. That's right, I'm still holding it. The butler behind her thought. So cute, I really want to smell those paw pads. Hearing this, she glanced over. Then she held the cat out with both hands and asked the butler, "Want it?" The cat vehemently protested his touch. Seeing this, he waved his hands. "No, no, this is the lady's cat. How could I?" While Skyla wearily muttered, "Just take it, it's fine." Unexpectedly, the cat got angry and threatened her directly. "If you abandon me, my lady, I will appear in your dreams." She looked at it for a long time and then sighed to herself. Annoying, I should have just left it on the balcony. After thinking, she lowered her eyes and let out a breath. Finally, she made a decision. I should greet Lancia's family and then go back, right? I'll deal with this one first. A large door was opened by someone. She put the cat down from her arms. It suddenly called her name. "Lady Karen," it asked angrily, "are you planning to give me to a servant?" She replied nonchalantly, "I can't bring the Viscount home." Hearing this, its eyes filled with aggrieved tears. "How could you tell me to go and be held by another man?" Skyla looked at it, speechless. What kind of phrasing is that? The cat continued to reason. "Many servants have already seen the cat in the lady's arms. If I suddenly disappear, they will ask where you abandoned me." After saying that, it thought smugly, "This way, I'll follow the lady to the Garnet Ducal Mansion. Yes, and I'll get her to raise me too." It even thought about the future, and she will gradually open her heart to me. In the end, she had a compromise. "Fine, do as you wish." The cat, having gotten its way, cried out, "You have to hold me, my lady." As Skyla pushed the door open, a voice rang out, "Oh my lady." A group of ladies approached with bright smiles. "We were waiting for you." Seeing the group in front of her, her eyes immediately filled with disgust. It's not clear what happened, but the group was frightened and stepped back. The fierce cat bared its teeth and stared straight at them. She took that opportunity to calmly turn away. "My cat is quite sensitive. I'll be leaving first." The group still wanted to say something. "My lady, wait." But the cat immediately turned back to look at them with a cold glare. The group could only smile awkwardly and turn away. Skyla stood with her arms crossed, waiting for the cat to approach. It asked smugly, "How was that? I had a good job, right?" She didn't deny it. It was useful. The people who just appeared made her feel annoyed as she thought, "I don't want to talk to those half-hearted people who only approach to satisfy their curiosity. At most, it would just be gossip about the relationship between me and the Crown Prince. I hate wasting time on things like." So, after thinking, she looked around. But where did Launcha go? Beside her, Atberry looked thoughtful. "Isn't young Master Launcha wonderful?" Skyla's eyes suddenly widened when she heard the sentence. "Over there," Atberry shyly continued. "Should I ask him to dance with me?" Only then did Skyla turn her head towards the sound. "Launcha?" The woman next to Atberry let out a breath and said, "Are you in your right mind? Young Master Launcha is famous for not dancing with any one." Atberry, still daydreaming with a blush, said, "Who knows? He's sitting all alone by the window. Isn't that pitiful?" She looked over there for a long time. Then she decided to walk over and ask her where she last saw Launcha. Unexpectedly, she overheard her complaints. Lady Skyla is also too much. All this time, she has been toying with young Master Launcha like that. She also said, now she's switching to His Highness the Crown Prince. Skyla froze after hearing this. Atberry continued, "Lady Skyla's character is not good either." The person next to her turned pale and looked to the side. She continued, "Young Master Launcha has been hurt so much," while the girl beside her tremblingly called, Atberry, Atberry." Unaware of her presence, she continued nonchalantly, "Only I can heal young Master Launcha's wounds." Skyla couldn't help but mock. "If you want to find a man to heal wounds, why don't you serve at a hospital, my lady?" Only then did she turn around, and upon seeing her, was too horrified to speak. "La lady." She bowed her head and admitted her fault. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were here, lady, so I made a mistake." Skyla sternly cut her off. "Even if I were not here, you are not allowed to speak nonsense, my lady." In her heart, she thought, "I've seen a glimpse of how high society perceives me and Launcha. The story they understand is that I am a heartless villainess, and young Master Launcha is suffering from love." She was extremely frustrated, thinking, from the very beginning, I was the one who was rejected. After thinking, she asked, "Where did you see Launcha, my lady?" Atberry stammered, Yes. She replied, tremblingly, "I heard the young lady say he was sitting by the window." Skyla gave a smile that hit a dagger. "While I'm still speaking nicely, can you leave me there?" Atberry could only respond in fear, Yes. Suddenly, Skyla noticed something. Launcha was sitting forlornly by the window. She thought to herself, he looks so lonely. She bowed her head and wondered, is it because of me? She was in a state of doubt. Did I really do something wrong? Suddenly, someone called her name, Skyla. She immediately turned her head to look. Hovawart waved and said with a smile, "It really is Skyla." She turned to look at him and softly called, "Hovawart." Hovawart smiled in greeting. "Long time no see. Was it a bit chaotic earlier?" Skyla smiled and asked back, "Have you been well all this time, Hovawart?" Suddenly, he extended his hand in front of her. "It's been a while. Let's shake hands." Skyla recalled a childhood memory and suddenly felt uneasy. Why a handshake? From childhood until now, I've seen enough terrible sights. Hovawart smiled and explained, as the one who will become Duke Karen. "From now on, I must maintain etiquette. I hope for your help." Young Duke Karen. She suddenly understood his intention. Trying to get in line first? Huh? But I like someone this perceptive. Finally, she reached out and took his hand, taking the opportunity to ask a few polite questions. "How are Duke Sally and the Duchess?" He smiled in reply. "They've gone to have an audience with Her Majesty the Queen. They'll probably be talking for a long time." Hearing this, she thought to herself, "I won't be able to greet them today either." Then she turned and called, "Lancia." The boy in front of her had his head down. Lancia sadly bowed his head. After hearing her call, he immediately raised his head and called softly, "Skyla." She was startled as she looked into his eyes. His eyes seemed to hold something, making her softly call his name, Lancia, in her heart. After a moment, she asked, "Why that expression? Are you in a bad mood?" Lancia replied, "I don't know." Skyla asked again, "Don't know what?" He answered sadly, "I also don't know why I don't know." Hovawart, standing behind her, pretended to cough twice. Then he whispered into Skyla's ear. He's saying that if it's not you, he absolutely won't dance. He also said, "I don't know what happened, but take a look. Originally, Lancia is just like that." After hearing this, she didn't know what to say. Suddenly, a cat's paw rested on her foot. The kitten looked up, showing her its sparkling eyes. Seeing this, Hovawart's eyes lit up. "Oh my, where did such a cute cat come from?" He sat down with a friendly smile. "Little kitty, let me pet you. Come here." Unexpectedly, the cat glared at him and told him to get lost. When Hovawart reached out his hand, it disdainfully dodged. It even swiped at him with its claws. He turned pale looking at his reddened hand. Earlier, Hovawart had invited a girl to dance. "Would you like to dance with me, my lady?" But it seems he was rejected, he thought resentfully. Rejected from a dance, and now rejected by a cat. Tears of resentment began to fall. "I'm going to get a drink." As Hovawart dejectedly turned away, Skyla was still bowing her head, lost in thought. She stood there, stunned. Lancia is originally like that. How long must I rely on that sentence and patiently overlook Lancia's foolish behaviors? I've already tried my best. Suddenly, Lancia called out, "Skyla." He asked pitifully, "Dance with me." Skyla asked, dumbfounded, why all of a sudden. He answered, "You danced with His Highness the Crown Prince earlier." He added, "So, this time can you dance with me?" She stared at him blankly. Then she absent-mindedly glanced down. Lancia called again, "Skyla," and she reached out to take his hand. "Let's go home." He asked, dumbfounded, "Go home now?" She pulled him forcefully with a tense face and replied, "Yes, your hand is as cold as ice. At this rate, you'll catch a cold." Lancia froze. He wondered, "You're not dancing?" She turned her back and answered decisively, "No." He bowed his head again at this answer. Then he sadly wondered to himself, "What did I do wrong?" He added, "Was it because I insisted on following you to the tea party at Marquis Garnet's mansion? Or because I hid in the carriage? Did I avoid your gaze or what?" Skyla sternly denied it. "It's none of those." Lancia pressed, "Then why?" She placed her hand on her chest. She said, "Are friends." She reminded herself, "Yes, friends, that is the distance between us." She added, "Lancia, since we are friends, we cannot dance at the ball. Dancing is an act for people in love." He immediately asked, "So are you and His Highness the Crown Prince lovers?" Skyla bowed her head and denied it, "No." Then she added, "But His Highness the Crown Prince is interested in me, so he asked me to dance." It's unknown what he was thinking, but he said, "Then we can just become lovers." She froze and asked again, "What?" Her eyes were full of astonishment. He said with tears welling up, "No matter how foolish I am, I still know that dancing is only for couples in love." His eyes blurred with tears. "I like you, Skyla. Don't leave me. I beg you." He said while crying, "I've decided to keep saying it until you understand my feelings. So, no matter how many times you push me away, it's okay." Then he also said, "But I'm very scared that you will leave me." Skyla called out, "Lancia." She wondered, "Why are you crying? This fool, why are you making me misunderstand just like before?" Lancia added, "This is the 323rd time, Skyla. Now I want to end it right here." He repeated, "Skyla, I like you." He pleaded humbly, but when I think about having to keep waiting like this, my heart hurts so much. So, it's okay if you just like me a little, can you? She thought to herself. I was going to reject him like always, because Lancia has no idea what his own words mean. She bit her lips softly, then bowed her head and called Lancia. She was extremely sad. Now, I'm not as easily fooled as before, but the emotions I've suppressed all these years, I can't hold them back much longer. She wondered, why do you always talk as if you really like me? Skyla stood facing Lancia. Lancia asked in surprise, what? Skyla spoke up, do you like me? Hearing this, Lancia's expression instantly stiffened. Skyla was still waiting for an answer. Lancia's lips trembled as if he wanted to say something, but Skyla stopped him. Skyla said, you still don't know what you're saying, do you? But now I understand. Only I was mistaken about your feelings. Only I liked you, unrequitedly for so long. Skyla shed tears. Actually, you're not bad at all. I know. At this point, Skyla suddenly remembered the words. Lady Skyla, for the one you love, are you willing to cast aside your own love? At times like this, she thought of his words. Lancia is a great mage who must live his whole life under the influence of magic and emotions. But you're telling me I have to teach you about this pain. Thinking so, Skyla spoke up. Lancia, I can't like you. Skyla's heart couldn't help but ache. If I do this and you break down, what should I do? Lancia lowered his head, trying to force out each word. Then what must I do? What do I have to do for you to like me just a little? Skyla's heart was in turmoil. It's okay if you don't understand me, because your safety is the top priority. Skyla had no choice but to lie. Don't like me anymore. Lancia replied sadly. I don't want to. Hearing that, Skyla looked at him in utter surprise. Lancia said, Skyla, liking you is my feeling. Two streams of tears rolled down Lancia's face. He said emotionally, as long as it's you, I can't control my emotions. I don't like you because someone else told me to. I like you because it's what I want. Even if you don't accept me, I will always like you. In the middle of a magnificent, luxurious room, Skyla stood there. Because you don't like me, I won't confess anymore. But if you ever change your mind, tell me to confess to you for the 324th time, okay? Skyla's face flushed as she thought to herself. Maybe that preference of his is real, but I don't believe he likes me. Skyla quickly turned her face away. She was restless because if the first person you relied on was someone else, you would probably like that person now, not me. Skyla left with sadness. Before leaving, she said to Lancia, I'm going home first. Seeing Skyla leave just like that, Lancia was rooted to the spot. At this moment, a few other young ladies came to talk to her. Lady Skyla, today, while dancing with His Highness the Prince. Lady, where did you buy that dress? Skyla was in no mood to answer them and said, Excuse me. Her slender figure continued to walk towards the front. The Crown Prince approached and called her name. Lady Skyla. Skyla quickly turned around and replied respectfully, Your Highness the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince replied politely, Call me Rian. Skyla refused. No, there's no need. The Crown Prince answered, It seems you have misunderstood something, lady. Calling me that is not a suggestion, but a command. Skyla was furious at this moment, but had to appear calm on the outside. The Crown Prince asked in confusion, The atmosphere has just started to liven up, and you already want to leave, lady? Skyla replied indifferently, Because I'm not feeling well, I have to leave early. The Crown Prince sighed worriedly. I was about to say that your complexion doesn't look very good. Skyla thought to herself, Is he worrying about his future fiancée? The Crown Prince suggested, Among the royal mages, there is one who is very skilled in healing magic. Tomorrow I will send that person to the Duke's mansion. Because you are very important to me, lady. Hearing that, Skyla was also a little moved. Thank you, Your Highness. The Crown Prince's deep eyes stared intently at Skyla. He speculated, The lady has a bad friend, doesn't she? Skyla was suspicious. What does Your Highness mean? The Crown Prince replied, The meaning is literal. He leaned down and said, If it were me, I would have cherished my friend more. So, Skyla was bewildered. What is he talking about? Is he annoyed about what happened earlier? Then the Crown Prince extended his hand and said, I will escort you to the carriage, lady. The two left hand in hand. Skyla turned to look back and thought to herself, Is Lancia watching too? I've hurt Lancia so much. Is he still paying attention? Outside, the sky had darkened, and sparkling stars shone in the sky. The Crown Prince spoke. Where did this cat come from? Skyla was extremely surprised. Skyla guessed, could be Duke Adesina. Follow me all the way here? Viscount Adesina was at this moment lying on the ground sulking. Take me with you too, lady. Skyla glanced coldly, then turned to the crown prince and said, I don't know. It probably hid somewhere and just crawled out. Hearing this, the crown prince went along with her and ordered his attendant. Deal with it. Viscount Adesina screamed. No, I will resent you. The crown prince had escorted Skyla to the carriage. This made everyone very curious. Why did she rush in with young Master Lancia and then come out with another man? An idea struck Fabrice. Could it be that the young lady has really become the crown princess? Seeing the scene of the crown prince kissing Skyla's hand, Fabrice became even more certain. Indeed, it looks very much like it. The crown prince smiled brightly. Thank you for dancing with me today. We will meet again soon. Sitting in the carriage, Skyla sighed in relief, while Fabrice nervously glanced at her. Skyla was worried. Everything was proceeding as she wanted, but she still felt a sense of guilt. She thought of Lancia for a moment. Skyla felt regret. I shouldn't have left him alone. Lancia, inside the room, was also filled with longing for Skyla, the sorrow unconcealable on his face. Thank you for watching today's video. Our story will continue with many exciting developments ahead, so don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel to support us and not miss the latest story episodes. Wishing you moments of relaxation and fun. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.